morning. We'll now call the San Diego County Board of Supervisors regular meeting of February 9th, 2021 to order. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all 5 supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage. I'll remind members of the public that have requested to speak to wait to dial into the meeting until the item is called. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson?
Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Here.
Supervisor Desmond?
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Here.
Chair Fletcher?
Here. We will now move to the pledge, invocation, pledge, and proclamations, beginning first with the invocation. If everyone would please rise. The invocation will be delivered by Reverend Caleb Lines from University Christian Church. Reverend, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chairman Fletcher, Vice Chair Vargas, supervisors, and citizens. Greeting to you on behalf of University Christian Church in Hillcrest, and thank you so much for the important work that you are doing. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be with you this morning. I invite everyone to find a quiet place to be with that source of truth and being which lies beyond us. Great source of wisdom, peace, and justice. We gather this morning from across San Diego County, grateful for the technology that connects us, yet lifting up the frustrations of this time where for our own health and safety, we must be physically separated from one another. We give thanks for a county that embraces science and cares deeply for the well-being of all people. We see light on the horizon and give deep thanks for vaccines that will help to keep us all healthy and safe. We give you thanks for the ways that San Diego County has responded to these challenging times. We give thanks for this Board of Supervisors, which is doing the difficult work of bringing people together and leading through both a pandemic and extremely polarizing times. We ask that they might lead with both wisdom and courage for the facing of these days, and that their leadership might inspire us all to confront even hatred with compassion, forgiveness, and care. We also ask that we might always keep those who are most vulnerable in our cities and in our county on the forefront of our minds as we make decisions that might affect them, that we might stand on the side of those who are living in poverty, under oppression, and the feeling of marginalization. Above all, may our words, our actions, our votes, and indeed our very lives be shining examples of how we are called to love one another. As Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman reminded us in her poem, The Hill We Climb, for there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. May our lives shine forth love and compassion so that we might inspire one another to be better, more caring people, and to live our lives working for a more just and more equitable society for all. And may it begin today in this very moment. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us. The pledge today will be delivered by 3 students, Xochitl, Eva, and Jessica. They are students at the Monarch School, and along with Jessica Gonzalez, the mothers, we will turn it over to you. Thank you all for joining us and leading our Board of Supervisors in the Pledge of Allegiance today.
Okay. Come on. Ready, begin. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you all so very much. That was wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you all. We will now proceed with our proclamations. We have a number of proclamations this morning. We're going to start with Vice Chair Nora Vargas honoring Dr. Kindred Murillo from Southwestern College. Supervisor Vargas.
I am so sorry, Mr. Chair. I don't have the document in front of me because I'm having issues with my computer. I apologize.
That's okay. We will go on to the other ones and then we'll come back to you. So we'll give you a minute to do that. I'll be presenting the next proclamation to the San Diego Audubon Society. Accepting this proclamation will be Travis Chemnitz, the Executive Director. This month is the 50th anniversary of World Wetlands Day. And in honor of this celebration and Love Your Wetlands Day, I want to honor and recognize the San Diego Audubon Society. San Diego Audubon Society is a nonprofit organization that has served our county wonderfully for over 70 years, fostering the protection and appreciation of birds, wildlife, their habitats through both education and study. They bring environmental instruction to thousands of students each year in San Diego through field trips and hands-on experience. The youth who visit them gain experience, tremendous understanding of nature, a deeper understanding of how our world works, and I believe they leave with a much greater commitment to working to protect our environment. There are so many incredible programs of San Diego Audubon, but I'm excited to talk about Love Your Wetlands Day. I have had the pleasure of attending in person for many years now in Mission Bay. Mission Bay used to house 4,000 acres of wetlands, but now only 66 acres remain. To preserve and restore wetlands in Mission Bay, a coalition has formed Rewild Mission Bay. The vision is to restore wetlands, sequester carbon, provide habitat for numerous species, connect people with nature, including our indigenous communities. Wetlands have the unique position of both being extremely vulnerable to climate change and also being an important part of our toolkit to fight it. Wetlands sequester carbon, and scientists are currently studying exactly how much carbon coastal wetlands can capture. We are following this research closely in order to integrate healthy wetlands as a critical part of our climate action plan and meeting our zero carbon goals. As a part of Love Your Wetlands Day, San Diego Audubon is hosting a webinar today and next Tuesday, February 16th. Even though we cannot gather in person this year at the Kendall Frost Wetlands, we hope to encourage virtual participation and for everyone to love our wetlands. So therefore, it is my distinct privilege as chair, along with the entire County Board of Supervisors on this 9th day of February 2021, to declare this day to be Love Your Wetlands Day throughout San Diego County. Thank you and congratulations to the Audubon Society. And with us is Travis to accept the proclamation. I believe with us is Travis to accept the proclamation.
Yes, Travis, you are unmuted and you may proceed to accept your proclamation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're so very honored to be recognized by the San Diego County Board of Supervisors for our mission and service to birds, other wildlife, and their habitats. We thank our board members, staff, volunteers, partners, and fellow bird lovers for their passion and dedication to making our mission possible. While San Diego is one of the most biodiverse and birdiest cities in our nation, our feathered friends are in trouble more now than ever before due to climate change, loss of habitat, and other human activities. The coronavirus pandemic has also highlighted inequities in our access to parks, birds, and natural spaces, and we must protect and restore habitat for all San Diegans. Now is the time to take action. We hope that you can all visit us at sandiegoaudubon.org to learn more about our initiatives like the Rewild Mission Bay Project and to sign up and register for our Love Your Wetlands virtual activities. Thank you so much, San Diego County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you to everyone at Audubon. Our next proclamation I'll be doing is honoring the San Diego Heart Association. Accepting this proclamation will be Chelsea Walczak-Verks, their Senior Director for Community Impact. Cardiovascular diseases are the #1 killer of women in the United States, killing one woman almost every 80 seconds. It can affect, in particular, women of any age. About 80% of cardiac events can be prevented through education and lifestyle changes. Thus, all are encouraged to move more, eat smart, manage blood pressure to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. Founded in 1924, the American Heart Association is the trusted, passionate, and relevant force for change to eradicate heart disease and stroke in women. The American Heart Association's Go Red for Women remains steadfast and committed to meeting the comprehensive health needs of women at every life stage. For For this region, we encourage all San Diegans to show their support for women in the fight against heart disease by wearing the color red in February as a part of the Go Red for Women month. And it is my privilege as chair and my honor, along with my colleagues, to proclaim this 9th day of February Go Red for Women Day, and to welcome with us the American Heart Society of San Diego. And we'd like to welcome Chelsea to make some remarks.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher and the board for having me here today and for this recognition of American Heart Month and the Go Red for Women movement. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death among men, but it's also the #1 killer of women. It claims more women's lives than all forms of cancer combined. The price of cardiovascular disease is high, and 1 in 3 women will pay that price with their life. Research shows that heart attacks are on the rise in younger women, and new data suggests younger generations of women, Gen Z and millennials, are less likely to be aware of their greatest health threat, including knowing warning signs of heart attacks and stroke. That's why it's important for all women to take charge of their heart health and encourage others to do the same. 2020 was a year like no other, but we're still standing. When women come together, there's nothing we can't achieve. COVID, heart disease, stroke, we won't let it beat us. It's time to take action. Losing even 1 woman to cardiovascular disease is too many. By raising awareness, you inspire women to make healthy lifestyle changes, you mobilize communities, and you shape policies to save lives. Thank you again for your continued support and work to promote community health and health equity.
Thank you, Chelsea. We will now go back to Supervisor Nora Vargas.
Thank you, Chair. It is my honor today I'm excited really to present this proclamation to honoring Dr. Kindred Murillo. Dr. Murillo has spent more than 20 years of educational leadership experience in the California community college system and has strived to build coalitions through a culture of equity, diversity, and inclusivity. Her tenets of service as superintendent and president of Southwestern Community College have been focused on increasing the success of our students and build them up into strong leaders ready to take on the challenges of the 21st century. She led a joint task force between the governing board of Southwestern College and the Chula Vista City Council as we worked together to explore a new model in Chula Vista where universities could share facilities and resources with students and their families to help their community thrive. I've known her to treat others with dignity and respect. She led with these values by initiating a task force on inclusion and race relations where she listened to concerns from members of our community. From those discussions, she worked to implement necessary changes to build a more welcoming environment for all students, faculty, staff, and communities within our own Southwestern Community College. I am really proud that I was on the selection committee at Southwestern College at the time that we chose Dr. Murillo as our superintendent president. The work that she's done in the last couple of years has been exceptional, and I'm excited that she gets to now, gets to retire and enjoy time with her husband and her family. And so with that, I just want to make sure that thank Dr. Murillo, who has elevated her opportunities for countless of thousands of students, faculty and staff, and members of our community. So I really want to honor her today by proclaiming February 9th, 2021 as Dr. Kindred Murillo Day throughout San Diego County. Now I'd like to turn it over to Southwestern Community College Superintendent and President, Dr. Kindred Murillo. Thank you.
Dr. Murillo, you may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. I was so surprised when I was told I had to be here this morning. So I want to thank you. And I want to say this was really the most fulfilling work I've ever done in the 24 years that I have worked in community colleges. And South County is so deserving of having higher education and amazing educational opportunities. And we're so excited that Southwestern College will be building a university center to house 4-year education in South County. The last thing I'd really like to do is thank the Board of Supervisors. You've used science to keep us safe. And working in South County, we have seen the disparate impacts of COVID. And I so appreciate all your efforts, and I do mean this really sincerely, to get vaccinations out and get them out quickly. I've seen your work. I was over at Petco last week, and I just want to thank you sincerely for that. So thank you. Vice Chair Vargas, congratulations, and we're very excited for you.
Thank you, Dr. Murillo.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Vargas, and thank you for your very kind remarks. Our last proclamation today will be given by Supervisor Jim Desmond, honoring the Wounded Warriors Home. Accepting this proclamation will be Mia Roseberry, Executive Director and Founder. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I appreciate it. Today, I am pleased to honor the Wounded Warrior Homes. Here accepting the proclamation is Founder and Executive Director, Mia Roseberry. The Wounded Warrior Homes is a nonprofit located in San Marcos, whose mission is to provide transitional housing and reintegrative services to veterans with traumatic brain injury and/or post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Homes' vision is to facilitate the transition from wounded warrior to successful civilian for all veterans they help. The military estimates that 1/5 of all troops with brain injuries will have prolonged or lifelong symptoms. For over a decade, Wounded Warriors have served and housed local veterans within 3 North County homes. Recently, the Wounded Warrior Homes announced a transitional care and counseling program, a new program called LIFE, Living Independently Forever, providing case management, individual transition plans, and for up to 2 years of transitional housing for veterans. Amazingly, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Wounded Warrior Homes has traditioned 8 veterans, allowing them to take their next successful steps in their lives. County of San Diego is committed to recognizing and honoring those organizations who are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, and the Wounded Warrior Homes is one such worthy organization. So now today, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors commend Wounded Warrior Homes for their outstanding service, leadership, and commitment to our veterans, and do hereby declare this day to be Wounded Warrior Homes Day throughout San Diego County. And Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask Mia Roseberry if she'd like to say a few words.
Of course, Supervisor. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your support, and this is quite an honor on behalf of Wounded Warrior Homes. Our staff, our board, and our volunteers are all rock stars, and without them, we couldn't have done this. Things were a little touch and go at the beginning of COVID, but the community stepped up and said, no way, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay and you're going to thrive. And thanks to the community and the Board of Supervisors in San Diego County, that Wounded Warrior Homes is still here and we are rocking it going into 2021. It is our honor to support the veterans in our community through transitional housing and supportive food for their food insecurity, and transitional planning in the part of our life program. It's just been a really rough year on a lot of our veterans. And as Supervisor Desmond mentioned, we were able to transition 8 veterans. That means 8 went out and 8 came in. And so that's really a great feeling that those veterans felt safe and secure in their next steps in their life. One actually even purchased his own home. And it's a great honor to have the recognition of the County Board of Supervisors and Supervisor Desmond for the great work that we do here in the North County and all over San Diego to support the veterans either in our program, the veterans who have transitioned from our program, and the veterans in our community. And it's an honor to do the work, and we thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mia, for a great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Desmond, for recognizing our veterans, and thank you, Mia, for all that you do. Next on the agenda is non-agenda public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Board of Supervisors on matters within our jurisdiction, but matters that are not on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. At this point, I'll ask the clerk if we have any requests for non-agendized public comment.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 7 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. Any members of the public that have requested to speak during non-agenda public communication this morning, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. As a reminder for callers, if you requested to speak on a specific agenda item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of that item. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. I'd remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
We are waiting for the non-agenda public comment callers to call in at this time. So just one moment, please. I think we have our first one, 6687, 6687.
Good morning. My name is Drusilla Willis. I am a human service specialist at the Lemon Grove Live Well Center. I am the County of San Diego Union Employees Chapter President and a proud member of the African American Action Committee, or AAAC, with SEIU 221. Our AAAC President, Iris K. Trammell, has worked tirelessly for years, and I'm proud to call her our president. I'm here to speak on why Black history is important. Every day, especially outside of February. In the words of Morgan Freeman, I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history. SEIU AAAC is more than just a group of token Black people you can call to stand next to you for press conferences and photo ops. More than just a group to be seen and not heard. We are the voice of many amazing Black people determined to fight for the rights and justices our people deserve, both in and outside of the county workplace. Before COVID, we were busy in our communities, volunteering in multiple ways, such as feeding the homeless, supporting families in need, giving out school supplies to children, donating to the battered women's shelter, and the list goes on. Every year, we host a Juneteenth celebration at our local union hall where we have members and dignitaries attend throughout the state of California. And some of you county leaders and elected officials have attended our events. Juneteenth has always been important to us and celebrated way before the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm saying this to emphasize that we are often called upon as pawns for optics to stand next to you for press releases and photo ops, as opposed to essential stakeholders with a valuable and diverse perspective. AAAC is more than that. You paint us to be, and we just wanted you all to know that we are here fighting for our communities, and we would like to be a part of these newly created groups on racism. Just remember, and I quote, "Don't count me out. I have been built and strengthened by life's battles. When you think I'm tired, I'm just getting started. When you think I'm dead, that's when I'm most alive." Steve Maraboli. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9886. 9886.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Fields, Government and Public Relations Director of the Asian Pacific Islander Initiative, Director of the Filipino Resource Center. We'd like to
Joanne, we're having trouble hearing you on our end. Joanne, you're unmuted, but we're not, you may have muted yourself on your end. Do you want to check your phone and make sure you're unmuted? It seems like she may be experiencing some technical difficulties, so we're going to move on to the next caller and come back to Joanne Fields if she's able to fix her audio issues. So we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 1822. 1822.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Peggy Walker, Public Policy Advocate and Public Health Educator. I just want to say that there is a paradox in the fact that some of you who have previously insisted on banning flavored tobacco products, and rightfully so because they are addictive and pose a strong danger to youth health and development, now are calling for thoughtful and responsibly drafting a proposal for widespread cultivation, manufacturing, retail sale, and distribution of psychoactive marijuana products, which present all the same insidious harms as tobacco. Even more distressing to those of us in public health is the fact that board members are going along with this under the guise of social equity or the unqualified claim that legal is safe, even though there's absolutely no data to support that claim, and in spite of last year's strong constituent support of a ban. This will be a robust process with input from the public stakeholders, including the prevention community, Mr. Fletcher posed. Yet, when calling staff, they suggest only that you talk to community planning groups, which only make suggestions often ignored to supervisors, where decisions are made and the buck stops. You have suggested best practices, but where do you think authenticated best practices for selling hard drugs and addictive products will be found? The best science-based practice would be not to clutter our unincorporated areas with a glut of pot businesses. But if you are really interested in input from the outside and are willing to listen, here are some research, science-based best practice suggestions from the public health arena. If the goal is to serve public health interests, I would ask you to consider capping THC potency, ban flavored products that encourage underage use.
Thank you.
Ban edibles.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next caller is 7613. 7613.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Ratt. I'm a mother representing a group of parents concerned with public health in our community. Last week, I was tuned into the Board of Supervisors meeting when you addressed the permitting of pot shops in unincorporated areas. I have personal concerns with this issue as I'm raising my cousin's child due to her marijuana addiction, starting in grade school over 20 years ago. As you can imagine, this has greatly impacted my life and the lives of my other children. I was baffled when I realized this item was being heard at all, and even more surprised that it moved forward. It's no secret these pot shops are primarily selling flavored oils, waxes, and edibles. Edibles that are packaged and flavored to depict candy and sugary snacks. What message is this sending to all the parents and families who supported the Board of Supervisors in their flavored tobacco campaign? Supervisor Fletcher traveled around the county speaking out in support of banning the sale of all flavored tobacco. Marijuana is no different from tobacco products. Marijuana is actually more detrimental to the mental health of adolescents. The majority of San Diego County residents, people living and working hard, the real people of the county, are saddened that the board has bought into the pot industry, only listening to the pot profiteers and those that are interested in capitalizing on this opportunity to prey on the most vulnerable. I thank Supervisor Desmond for his willingness to listen to the people and acting in their behalf. I highly encourage the board to put together a task force where those of us affected by your fast-moving ordinance can have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8623. 8623.
Yes, good morning. This is Lori Saldana calling in. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
All right, thank you. Good morning. I was calling regarding a serious problem that we have with deaths in our county jails. And I wanted to ask one of the supervisors to request that the State Legislative Audit Committee do a review and compare the numbers of deaths we're seeing in San Diego County jails with deaths at other comparable counties around California. There seems to be a dispute on the County Law Enforcement Review Board regarding methodology. And I think a state legislative audit would be one way to compare other counties in an equitable way and determine if San Diego does have a higher rate of death, as some researchers have found. I also wanted to ask if Chair Fletcher could join with Assembly Member Chris Ward and provide a status report on the recuperative care facilities. They both had promoted the construction of those, but we need them, well, we've been needing them for months here in San Diego. There are people who don't have shelter. They are being discharged from hospitals, have no place to go, and are ending up dying on the streets of San Diego as a result of a lack of recuperative care, which brings me to my final question about Project Room Key status. Under the new administration, the FEMA is reimbursing counties 100% of the cost of hotel rooms for unsheltered people to use for emergency shelters. And I see San Diego still is lagging behind in the use and availability of those rooms, which in a city built on tourism and hospitality, we have a lot of hotels but we still have a lot of people living either in congregate facilities at the convention center where risk of infection is high, or still being on the streets where police are spending a lot of money just moving them around without providing housing. So could the board please provide an update on recuperative care in the near future and Project Room Key status? Thank you. Does that noise mean that my time is up, or do I have another minute?
Your time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6598. 6598.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Judy Strang calling. I'm calling because I'm grateful that Board of Supervisor member Joel Anderson and Tara Lawson-Remer, in whose district I live, are proposing that the grants that we hope to receive will be used towards helping small businesses. I realize this is dependent on federal allocation and timing of that allocation, but I was pleased that there would be a focus on small businesses. I have worked with a population of people who live on the fringes for many years, first as a social worker and then in public health. And I am aware of how many of this population work in small businesses and depend on them, let alone the work and dreams of those who own those businesses. With this fringe population in mind, I must tell you that I was really befuddled with what happened at Board of Supervisors 2 weeks ago, when we seem to think that what would help our ethnic minorities is to bring pot shops to the backcountry. I'm not sure where that clamor came from. It certainly didn't come from any of the population I know and work with. And it certainly didn't come from the planning groups in the backcountry. I say this particularly because 8-10 years ago, when we first started thinking about what marijuana ordinances might look like, and some of the problems inherent in them, we formed a task force that met for over a year, and I served on that task force, and it was a representation of all of the people who would be impacted by this, and they took input, and we looked at maps, and we studied research, and then as a proposal came forward, it went to the Planning Commission. I'm concerned that we've lost this opportunity to be transparent and inclusive. I know something that's really important to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2153. 2153.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormick. I live in District 5. I'm the director of a youth mentoring program and a parent of 2. My son will be taking his driver's permit test tomorrow. I'm sharing with you the information that I told him, that marijuana is making the roads even more dangerous. Once the data is finalized, it looks like 2020 is going to set a record for the number of DUI fatalities, despite the presence of fewer vehicles on the road due to the pandemic. According to San Diego City Attorney Mara Elliott, there's been a significant increase in the number of drugged driving cases involving the use of marijuana, which people have begun using more frequently and less cautiously, as she wrote in recent commentary. Teenagers do not seem to be getting the message. A study published last month in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that almost half of U.S. teens who use marijuana on a regular basis admit to driving while high. The study also found that the prevalence of driving after using marijuana was more than double the prevalence of drinking and driving, perhaps reflecting teens' perception that it's less dangerous and more acceptable than drinking and driving. The study's lead researcher, Dr. Matteo Zhu, writes that recent trends in the legalization of marijuana may be leading teens to feel that it isn't as harmful as they thought in the past. Again, research confirms this. Studies find that teens who are exposed to more marijuana advertising are less likely to view it as harmful. As the industry expands and as the number of marijuana businesses increases, pot use becomes more normalized. The state and county must do more to educate people that marijuana is a psychoactive drug that should never be combined with driving. And we must all be aware of the impact that marijuana normalization is having on young people. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, Joanne Fields did not call back into the Zoom meeting, so that concludes the non-agenda public communication at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for all the callers who called in today. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes statement of proceedings for the meeting of January 26, 2021 for the San Diego County Board of Supervisors regular meeting. Is there a motion and second for their approval?
I'll move to approve, Desmond.
Second, Vargas.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by Supervisor Vargas. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of the consent calendar. I'll start by asking the clerk if there's any items the public wishes to be pulled for discussion.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Item 2 has been pulled by the public. Item 3 has been pulled by the public. Item 4 has been pulled by the public. Item 9 has been pulled by the public. Item 10 has been pulled by the public. Item 11 has been pulled by the public. Item 14 has been pulled by the public. And item 15 are closed session matters that will be considered at the conclusion of the board's public session. All the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda may be placed in the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll now go to my colleagues if there's any items you wish pulled for discussion, starting with Supervisor Anderson.
None at this time, thank you.
All right, Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yes, I'd like to pull item 8, please.
All right, item 8. Supervisor Desmond.
I have no items to pull, no further comments. I'll move to approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Vice Chair Vargas.
Just for clarification, item number 2 was pulled?
Yes, it was.
Okay, fantastic, and I'll second that motion.
Perfect. I have no items to pull or comments to make. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by Supervisor Vargas for approval of the consent calendar. Before the clerk calls the roll, I'll ask him just to repeat for everyone the items that both supervisors and the public has been pulled, and then call the vote.
Thank you. The items that have been pulled for discussion are items 2, 3.
This item is brought forward by Supervisor Vargas. I'll ask if she would like to make some initial comments.
Yes, Supervisor Fletcher, give me 1 second. There you go.
Before the supervisor begins, any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. By this public health crisis declaration of the Tijuana River Valley, I want to recognize first the environmental justice groups, community leaders, and organizations that have been working on this issue of District 1 for decades. I want to assure you that I will be a champion for all of you and for our communities that we serve. Our communities for far too long have been left behind, and moving forward, this will stop. Since 1931, contamination at Tijuana River Valley has negatively impacted the health of border and coastal communities in San Diego County and our binational region. This declaration is long overdue in an area that is faced with poor air quality, sewage leaks, waste from industrial plants, litter of waste tires that become vectors of disease-carrying mosquitoes, plastic pollution, sediment, and trash. This direct environmental impact, coupled with the long-lasting health impact, undermines our region's public health. Since 1993, and yes, I'm totally dating myself today, but I started working on this issue as a community representative for a local congressman in this district. This issue is dear and near to my heart. And when I was walking door to door or talking to members of our community, I committed that not only I was not going to be accepting business as usual, but that the status quo will no longer be the norm. Our frontline communities cannot afford to wait any longer. We will continue to work on federal efforts to address transboundary pollution of the Tijuana River Valley, and we'll be supporting the Border Water Restoration and Protection Act to bring more federal dollars to the region. For years, our low-income communities of color have been placed on the sidelines. This is not sustainable and will not be longer tolerated. I promised I was going to hit the ground running, and that's exactly what I'm doing today. Communities south of the 8th Freeway, like San Isidro, Logan Heights, National City, City Heights, Mountain View, and Imperial Beach, are communities of color that live on the front lines of environmental pollution and the climate crisis due to the long history of environmental racism and injustices. Our beach in Imperial Beach consistently faces closures due to contamination. Our communities of color do not have access to clean beach water due to the lack of prioritization of this problem. Data shows that Imperial Beach is contaminated with sewage water in both the surf line and shoreline. Federal agents and the Navy SEALs in Coronado and in that region have been negatively impacted by this crisis as well. In the United States, the Tijuana River watershed is the most polluted watershed in our country. I'm going to work with county staff to follow up with this declaration and bring together federal, state, binational, and local representatives from agencies, environmental justice organizations, and residents to advocate with a united voice for additional federal and state funding and resources to address the public health care crisis at the Tijuana River Valley. The county moving forward will be assessing environmental issues at Tijuana River Valley as a public health care crisis. Any policies we move forward will be centered the perspective of working Black, Indigenous, and communities of color that meaningfully address the patterns of underinvestment that put our youth in disadvantage from day one. I respectfully ask my colleagues for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vargas. Well, I think we'll now go to public comment on this item, and then we'll come back for board deliberation and discussion. I believe Mayor Gloria is on hand. I'm not sure if he is here at the exact moment, but let me turn it over to the clerk to ask any elected officials and then go into regular public comment.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Also note for the record that we received 71 e-comments on this item. We have 18 requests to speak on this item, and I do see Mayor Gloria has joined, as well as Councilmember Aguirre. As a reminder for the callers, if you do not wish to speak on this item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of the next item. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'd remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller, which I believe would be Mayor Gloria.
Yes, thank you. This is either Mayor Gloria or a representative from his office. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and County Supervisors. My name is Alexandra Brunter, and I'm the Senior Manager of External Affairs and Water Policy for Mayor Todd Gloria. On behalf of Mayor Gloria, I would like to voice support for Supervisor Nora Vargas' board letter declaring pollution at the Tijuana River Valley a public health crisis. For decades, transboundary flows from Mexico entering the United States as a combination of untreated wastewater, groundwater, and stormwater have occurred intermittently through each year and significantly increase with rainfall. We know that these flows contain pollutants and harmful pathogens that pose significant health risk to human health, impair beach water quality, and degrade the riparian and marine habitats that wildlife relies on. Declaring pollution at the Tijuana River Valley a public health crisis and ensuring that the direct impact on the health outcomes of nearby communities is front and center is the right thing to do on behalf of San Diegans that are negatively impacted by this crisis. We encourage your adoption of the declaration today and look forward to building upon the strong collaboration between the city and county in addressing this critical issue. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Imperial Beach Councilmember Paloma Aguirre. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher, Vice Chair Vargas, and members of the board. This is Paloma Aguirre, council member for the city of Imperial Beach. I represent over 28,000 residents from a primarily working class community of color. I am here today to express my strong support for declaring pollution from the Tijuana River a public health crisis. I'm grateful for Vice Chair Vargas' leadership on this extremely important issue that affects our residents' quality of life and environmental and public health. In 2020, the Imperial Beach shoreline was closed a total of 160 days and Borderfield State Park Beach 295 days. This limits access to one of the very few free recreational opportunities for our residents. The Tijuana River Valley is one of the other few areas where our residents can go to enjoy nature while hiking, biking, and horseback riding through its trails. The County of San Diego has made significant investments in restoring these trails only to have them blanketed and destroyed each year by cross-border trash and toxic waste carried by stormwater each time it rains. Furthermore, the county is slated to open a campground in the Tijuana River Valley to provide affordable camping opportunities, which is great in principle. However, this campground will be in close proximity to the Tijuana River,
which carries raw sewage with astronomically high counts of fecal indicator bacteria. Feces, as you know, may contain pathogenic viruses, including the coronavirus. Our South San Diego communities deserve a clean and safe Tijuana River Valley to enjoy. If we are to provide these types of accommodations, we must first clean up the Tijuana River Valley. I'd just like to add how grateful I am to Vice Chair Vargas for bringing this matter to the attention of the board and giving it the gravity it merits. I have been fighting cross-border pollution for the better part of the last 15 years, well before I was elected to office. I actually was one of the primary reasons I ran for city council. I have witnessed so many of my neighbors falling sick, and in some cases with life-threatening illnesses. So thank you so much for your leadership on this matter. I hope this action helps us all facilitate further actions to remediate the toxic environmental pollution affecting South Bay communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll be calling public speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number, beginning with 8046. 8046.
Good morning, supervisors. This is Noah Harris with Climate Action Campaign, calling in support of declaring the pollution at the Tijuana River Valley a public health crisis. We applaud Supervisor Vargas for this and other efforts to work towards environmental justice in San Diego, and we urge you to allocate funding this year for professional cleanup and remediation of the area. Contamination at the Tijuana River Valley, ranging from poor air quality and sewage leaks to plastic pollution, trash, and waste from industrial plants, is harming local communities along the border and coast, and this crisis must be addressed with the urgency it deserves. Environmental injustice and the impact of the climate crisis have and will hit communities of color and low-income communities first and worst. So we urge you to accompany this declaration with meaningful action and investments to achieve clean air and water and improve public health for residents living near the Tijuana River Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4591. 4591. Four, 591, please press *6 to unmute yourself. And if we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. We will move on to 63. Oh, here we go.
Am I on?
Yes, good morning.
This is Jim Pugh. I'm the Conservation Chair of the San Diego Audubon Society, and we greatly support the action you're planning to take. We agree with Supervisor Vargas' letter that the Tijuana River Valley problems cannot be addressed as just an environmental concern. But we urge you to think of it as a public health and environmental crisis. It's too easy to think that solving the sewage problem will solve the health crisis. But the sediments and the trash that flow across the border are also, and that also tend to bury our wetlands, bring contaminants with them too. And the plastics they come across eventually will turn into microplastics and actually enter into our food chain, which is definitely a health problem. Please consider declaring this both a health and environmental crisis. And the solutions to the health problem and the environmental problem can be joint solutions, and it's really important to consider them together to make sure that one doesn't undo the other. Also, look for comprehensive solutions that will solve the water problem, the sediment problem, and the trash problem jointly. And please strategize on how to influence our federal government and IBWC to finally do their jobs here. It's just not, it doesn't make sense that the county and state parks should have to be taking on environmental issues. So please, either lobby or something to get our federal politicians to be effective on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6395. 6395.
Good morning to the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. My name is Mitch McKay. I'm a long-term 55-year plus resident of Imperial Beach and Nestor. California, which is in the ground zero of the Tijuana River Valley. I'm here today to request that the board seriously contemplate and declare a state of emergency within the area we all know as the Tijuana River Valley. And again, I wish to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to share my observations. I believe a true health emergency does exist due to the ongoing cross-boundary toxic sewage and trash buildup in the Tijuana River channel. In one location, it's created a huge plug of sediment, trash, overgrowth of non-native plant species such as arundo and castor bean, which blocks the natural flow and sediment transport of the river and hinders sand delivery to the beach. In essence, it creates a sand or a sediment starvation situation and a critical imbalance of the tidal prism, which, if not addressed, will quickly and ultimately lead to death or what the scientists like to call eutrophication of the estuary itself. I am a member of the U.S. IBWC Citizens Forum Board, and as such, we have been tracking the IBWC's river gauge data, flow data, and we've calculated since October 1st of 2018, a mere 2.5 years, we've had in excess of 55 billion, I'm spelling that out because it's billion with a B, gallons of toxic Mexican effluent, wastewater, water, rainwater, stormwater, it all comes down together, and it's crossed into the Tijuana River Valley and ultimately makes its way out to the local Pacific Ocean. This and of itself is an absolute state of emergency and must be addressed immediately. Furthermore, I respectfully ask that in defining this state of emergency in the Tijuana River Valley, you allocate funding for remediation and restoration of the Tijuana River Valley to begin taking place this year and employing best management practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9372. 9372.
Good morning, County Board of Supervisors. My name is Shannon Johnson, and I'm a resident of Imperial Beach in District 1. I also co-lead Surfriders Clean Border Water Now program. I just wanted to say thank you to Vice Chair Vargas for putting this important item on the agenda. We very much appreciate it. I support declaring the pollution in the Tijuana River Valley a public health crisis, but we need more than that. The county must declare a state of emergency so that funding can be allocated for a large-scale cleanup in the TRV this year. Before safely opening the new campground this summer, the TRV desperately needs to be cleaned. I want you to know that I'm not against the campground. In fact, if the area was cleaned up, my family would frequent this wealthy area of natural resources and diverse habitats. We love the outdoors, surfing, camping, horseback riding, and hiking, but unfortunately, due to the pollution, we rarely visit the area unless it's for a surf rider-related event or to document the trash and sewage pollution. Our community and parks visitors deserve an affordable, clean, and safe space to recreate. As it stands, the area is riddled with trash, tires, sewage, and chemical pollution that does not disappear when the rain goes away. Please put the public's health ahead of opening the new campground in a contaminated watershed so that we no longer have to drive to East and North County to do what should be accessible and available for us to enjoy in our own section of the county. Please work with the other stakeholders and parcel owners in the region to do the right thing for everyone. Surfrider supports a large-scale cleanup effort immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0556. 0556.
Good morning, distinguished Board of Supervisors. My name is Gabriela M. Torres, and I am the Policy Coordinator for the Surfrider San Diego's Clean Border Water Now campaign. Surfrider is committed to the protection of the oceans, waves, and beaches, and has been an active player in addressing the cross-border sewage and pollution issue in South San Diego County for over 14 years. I am here today to support the declaration of a public health crisis in the Tijuana River Valley, but I urge you to take it a step further and to declare the area to be in a state of emergency. Untreated sewage, toxic chemicals, trash, and tires plague the area. Air pollution and now potential COVID-19 exposure through untreated sewage further complicate an already dire situation. I am calling upon you to immediately declare a state of emergency and to organize a professional cleanup in the Tijuana River Valley prior to the opening of the county's campground later this year. Please do this for the community so that we can really have affordable recreational opportunities in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6264. 6264.
Hi, my name is Laura Minna Joe, and I'm a resident of the city of San Diego. I urge the supervisors to vote yes to declare pollution a public health crisis in the Tijuana River Valley. Bacteria, flesh-eating bacteria, viruses, chemicals, toxins, all flow from Tijuana into the United States. San Diego border beaches collectively were closed more than 300 days in 2020. This is a breeding ground for a public health disaster. We've seen our world change through this pandemic. SARS, MERS, COVID mutations. Currently, the city of San Diego is studying if sewage is found in COVID. But what else is breeding or can develop? These viruses and bacteria can jump forces beyond our local boundaries of the TRV and move to the county and beyond. The county needs to be part of the solution along with the federal government. Declaring this pollution a public health crisis is the first step towards this solution. I urge the supervisors to vote yes, create a path for a better health and environmental future, not just for our communities of concern who might not know that their voices can be heard, but for the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6489. 6489. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good morning. My name is Vivian Marquez Waller. I live in District 3. I want to welcome the new and former board members and thank you in advance for your service. You served during trying times. San Diego County's population of 3,300,000 residents is greater than the population of 14 entire states. Our county is home to 1 out of every 100 American residents. Yet we are left in a position to fend for ourselves when it comes to sewage, trash, and chemicals coming from a neighboring country. I understand this is not a city, county, or state issue. This is a federal issue. However, the crisis affects our cities, county, and state, and until we can get the federal government to come do what is needed to take care of this once and for all, we continue to need your help. The first step is to declare the Tijuana River Valley sewage crisis a public health crisis today. Hopefully, the board will consider declaring the crisis a state of emergency in the near future to further ensure the county has the resources to deal with the many facets of this crisis. I understand the county generally performs cleanups in the Tijuana River Valley on an annual basis. We are grateful for that. We also know that last year's cleanup did not occur due to COVID-19 concerns. We understand that. However, the cross-border pollution these past 2 years have been greater than any time prior, and instead of one less cleanup, we need numerous more. We come to you as a last resort. My husband and I have picked up and disposed of dozens of 30-gallon bags of coastal trash and plastics over the years, as have many volunteer groups and individuals. But this time, volunteer groups cannot do it alone. The scale and magnitude of this cleanup effort requires front loaders, not hands, trash bins, not bags, and Herculean efforts and organization, not just the best of intentions. Thank you for your attention and for your vote declaring a public health crisis in the Tijuana River Valley.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8623. 8623.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Lori Saldana calling, and I want to acknowledge Supervisor Vargas for introducing this. Like the supervisor, I've been involved with this issue since the early 1990s. I was a plaintiff in a lawsuit regarding the construction of the International Wastewater Treatment Plant because at the time the Sierra Club determined that it would not solve the cross-border sewage flows. And today, almost over 25 years later, we're seeing the effect of this. I signed up as a oppose unless amended because the fact is, unless the sewage treatment plant at the border is redesigned and improved, even under the best situation, we will have sewage returning to the Tijuana River Valley. And today on World Wetlands Day, the Tijuana River Valley is under the Ramsar Treaty for International Wetlands Protection, and the United States needs to do a better job of living up to that treaty obligation. We need to extend the outfall from the International Wastewater Treatment Plant, and which right now discharges into less than 100 feet of water offshore, and with changes in tides and currents, that sewage is coming back to the beaches at times. And so even if the plant was working and the Tijuana facilities were working, we still have this sewage discharge offshore coming back into Coronado, Imperial Beach, and the estuary. So I would just oppose unless amended to include that not only is this a public health crisis, but it's also an infrastructure crisis. And we absolutely have to address that infrastructure at the border treatment plant. There's only a few $100 million from the federal government currently available to help with this. So I would encourage the board to request additional emergency funding and upgrade the operational status of the treatment plant at the border. Otherwise, no matter what else is done, we will have sewage at the border. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1864. 1864.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is David Waller, and thank you for allowing me to address this meeting. I'm in favor of declaring pollution at the Tijuana River Valley a public health crisis. I'm retired and resident of Imperial Beach. I'm a chemist by training with degrees in chemistry, biochemistry, and law. As a resident of this region, the pollution flowing from Mexico into the United States for over 50 years has now reached a health crisis level. It is clear that any attempt to address this issue is beyond the control of the services, personnel, equipment, and facilities of San Diego County. Tijuana's uncontrolled population growth over the past decade, with anticipated exponential growth in the future, will increase sewage flows into the United States and in excess of 100 million gallons per day. Tijuana's lack of wastewater and sewage treatment infrastructure, inadequacy of regulations controlling development in the region, combined with their inability or unwillingness to enforce these regulations, has escalated this historic abuse of our country's goodwill into a health crisis for the County of San Diego. In 2019, a report issued by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency listed a number of known carcinogens present in the water flowing from Tijuana at levels above those allowed by U.S. law. These pollutants are not restricted to the Tijuana River. They flow onto the beaches of Imperial Beach and Coronado. Commonly reported illnesses in these communities include intestinal disorders, respiratory distress, and ear-related infections. Because these illnesses have immediate symptomologies, many can be treated quickly and effectively. However, exposure to carcinogenic compounds identified by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency report, unlike those common illnesses, do not often have immediate symptomologies. Consequently, when found, they are often at a stage that is inoperable or systemic. Further, because it is primarily affects lower income regions and communities of color, this crisis may also be considered a type of social and racial injustice.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7240. 7240.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mariana Martinez. I am a binational neighbor. I am your neighbor. And as you might know, the local government in Tijuana has been planning to change the land use and density for the whole city. And that includes the area of Playa de Tijuana, a small urban beach town where 22,000 people here live. And now they want to do the housing over 40,000. If the plan succeeds, the already overcrowded and underserved community would increase its density with 7 to 10 new developments, including high-rise buildings and at least 3 shopping malls. The Playa community already lives with the threat of the only highway entrance collapsing, heavy traffic, spotty public services, and including running water, trash collection, and now the infamous raw sewage spills. And they're not spills if they are the result of irresponsible lack of maintenance. That makes our air stink and the ocean filled with our shit, literal and metaphorical shit. The proposed changes and developments would make this problem even worse for everyone quickly. As you are aware, the environment does not care about political borders, the increased pollution and disaster risk brought by this new project would greatly affect the water and air quality for communities across the border, including San Isidro, Chula Vista, and Imperial Beach. Lucky for us and you, there is plenty of hope, as Playas has been the home of wonderful and caring people who have formed a tight-knit community with great binational environmental organizations currently looking up to stop the plant in its tracks, not by going against the developers or individual projects, but by opposing the changes in land use and regulations that will allow this and other non-sustainable developments to become an awful reality for all of us. The proposed declaration is crucial to support our efforts to improve a serious binational health and environmental crisis. Once these plans are halted, we hope to dialogue with developers and authorities to sustainable development, proper waste management, and fully exercise our right to environmental justice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6365. 6365.
Hi, good morning, Chair Fletcher and supervisors and staff. My name is Tommy Howe, and I'm very much in support of the item to declare the ongoing pollution at the Tijuana River Valley a public health crisis. Indeed, that language is almost too benign to describe what has been occurring there, largely unimpeded for decades. The gargantuan volume of toxins, pollutants, and trash that wash into the mouth of the Tijuana River, the largest river in all of our geographical region, is indeed an ongoing public health crisis and an ecological nightmare, and it has been so for years, and it is wholly unlike anything faced by any other community in the United States. That the city of Imperial Beach, Borderfield State Park, and South Bay communities are on the front lines of this crisis is unacceptable. Imperial Beach in particular must not spend the entirety of its wealth, effort, and time addressing this calamity without significant investment now from all quarters of government, including the state and federal government. All efforts must be brought to bear to aid our neighbors along the region and end this crisis now. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you, and thank you to all of the callers. Before we go to board discussion, I wanted to ask Council and then Dr. Wooten to kind of just walk us through the difference between a crisis and a state of emergency, just so everyone is on the same page. Obviously, Supervisor Vargas's item here is declaring it a public health crisis, but I think it'd be good to get a quick explanation from Council and Dr. Wooten on the difference.
Chair Fletcher, members of the Board of Supervisors, there's three possible types of crises or emergency that could be declared here. The first is what is being asked for in this current item, which is a public health crisis, which primarily brings awareness to the important issues or problems being discussed. There's no specific statutory powers that come along with it, but it does draw the public's attention to it and expresses your board's concern for those issues. The second would be a local health emergency, which would be declared by the public health officer. And a public health emergency involves the release or escape of an immediate threat to the public health, or where there is an imminent and proximate threat or introduction of any contagious infections or communicable diseases. Those require certain health findings that Dr. Wooten can speak to momentarily. The legal consequence of this is it gives the opportunity to reach out for mutual aid from other local jurisdictions, state aid and state costs if it were to be available, and provides the county with certain immunities. Finally, there is the concept of a local emergency, which is to be used in conditions of disaster or extreme peril, and that would be designated, that would be declared by the Chief Administrative Officer, and both are subject to your board's subsequent review. It too carries with it certain immunities, mutual aid requirements, and it allows some promulgation of orders and regulations necessary to protect life and property. On each of those, it would require a finding of actual evidentiary support for the imminent threat or the extreme peril.
Chair Fletcher and members of the board, the county's epidemiological and data collection systems are robust systems to capture infectious disease linkages, including those related to the Tijuana River Valley, if they exist. The county has not to date detected any link between the diseases that could be associated with the exposure in the Tijuana River Valley. While no current evidence exists, a partial list of public health reportable diseases that may be linked to sewage exposure include campylobacteriosis, cryptosporidiosis, giardiasis, acute infections from hepatitis A and hepatitis E, salmonellosis, shigellosis, and typhoid fever, as well as Vibrio infections. Ear infections, skin infections, and gastrointestinal infections are typically the complaints from individuals who might have exposure to the river valley. These are not reportable by law to public health, but they are obviously a nuisance to individuals when they are infected. And they are self-limiting. Current data does not support a local health emergency declaration, but we do agree with making this a public health crisis, especially from an environmental perspective, and this would be a more plausible path to take. As stated by Council, public health crisis, there are 3 criteria. State and local governments have declared the issues to be a public health crisis to bring attention or awareness to important issues. There is no legal definition or statutory powers, but the Boston University School of Public Health suggests that the following criteria for using the term public health crisis include the fact that the problem must affect a large number of people, it must threaten health over the long term, and it must require the adoption of a large-scale solution or solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wooten. Go back to Supervisor Vargas, if you'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Wooten, and all of the members of the public and activists and elected officials who called on behalf of this motion. I really appreciate it. We have a lot of work to do, and I respectfully request a motion to support naming the Tijuana River Valley a public health care crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, happy to
I'd love to second.
Uh-oh.
Right, we're fighting over it.
I defer to my colleague.
I'm happy to defer, but I would do have some comments as well in support.
Please, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, the floor is yours.
Well, first, I just would like to strongly thank Supervisor Vargas for bringing this item forward. It is so important, and I'm just really honored to be able to vote for this today. I mean, I want to put this in some perspective. I do believe we are facing a moral crisis because of failed leadership, and we have to act with urgency to address this, the pollution impacting our ocean and our frontline communities. The wastewater and trash and raw sewages is one of the biggest threats in San Diego County, and it impacts all of us. You know, obviously, I represent North County, and the contamination negatively impacts not only the health of our border communities who've already witnessed decades of disinvestment, it also affects all of San Diego County. For those of us who surf in North County like myself, we experience not just closed beaches, but also the health hazards created by the untreated wastewater and sewage. The catastrophe is disproportionately impacting our most vulnerable communities, especially communities of color, and we cannot stand idly by. We must take action to confront this crisis. Those who are on the front line have been for a generation getting sick with rashes and viruses and other illnesses due to the toxic cross-border flows. And if you are a beachgoer in San Diego, you probably know at least one person who has had and suffered these symptoms. You, as well as many of us, may have experienced this yourself. There are immense environmental justice concerns that must be addressed. We absolutely need a new approach to deal with this disaster. And I am so proud that Vice Chair Vargas has brought this forward and declared this action to declare a public health crisis. And I am so proud to be able to support her in this work today.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Any other board member comments? Supervisor Desmond, and then we'll go to Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the time and actually to Supervisor Vargas for bringing this forward. This is, it's been a long problem here in San Diego County, the border sewage issue, and this takes. I'm glad you're here to take another fresh new look, and happy to support the item moving forward.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. We'll go to Supervisor Anderson.
This is clearly, for as long as I've lived in San Diego County, over 30 years, this has been an issue. And we've consistently heard it from surfers and OB and other folks, and it's gotten progressively worse. I think that if it's possible, I'm actually going to support it today, but I think we can't just go it alone. And I think that if it's appropriate, I'm still new to this board, perhaps we could reach out to the Biden administration to add pressure to work with Mexico to solve the issue. We can't fix it alone, and it impacts both sides of the border. And whatever we can do to get Mexico to step up and meet us halfway, I think is really important. And I'm eager and happy to support it today.
Thank you. All right, Supervisor Vargas, again, I want to join my colleagues in commending you for this great work. This obviously has been a pressing issue that has gone unresolved for too long. And so I think having our county take an affirmative statement about the serious nature of it and committing ourselves fully to joining with federal state partners, with our partners in Mexico and others, I think is a wonderful step for us to take. So pleased to support it. With that, we have a motion and a second. If Supervisor Vargas, if you have any closing comments, if not, we can call the roll.
You can go ahead and call the roll. Thank you.
All right, let's call the roll.
Mr. Fletcher, if I could just verify who seconded that motion. There was
Supervisor Anderson.
Great, thank you.
By like a half a second.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I thought it was Lawson Reamer Anderson.
With that, Supervisor.
I'm happy for the bipartisan support for this this important motion. So thank you, Supervisor Anderson.
So am I.
With that, Supervisor Anderson, your vote, please.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson Reamer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
So I think what we'll do next, let's go to, we're going to take public comment. If there's no objections on item 9 and 10 together, a number of public commenters want to speak to both and would prefer to not have to call in twice. So we'll hear public comment. We'll ask the speakers to just be clear if they're speaking to one or both of those items. And then after public comment, then we will take up item 9 for discussion, deliberation, debate, vote. Then we will move to item 10. But I want to be more convenient to some of our speakers who are calling in. And so with that, I would ask the clerk to call the public speakers for both agenda items 9 and 10.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I also note for the record that we received 20 e-comments on these two items, and we have 32 requests to speak on these two items. For all those individuals that requested to speak on items 9 and 10, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of your phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted. Then you'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. I'd remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, thank you. Our first caller is 6781. 6781.
Hello, Chairperson Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Juan Carlos Davenport, and I am a member of SEIU Local 221. I have worked at the county for 5 years, and I'm a records clerk at the San Diego County Probation Department, keeping the public safe through assisting both youth and adult clients in their rehabilitation process. I'm urging the board to vote yes on the item concerning FFCRA and the paid leave it used to provide to workers. The option to use paid leave to quarantine is essential to protecting public health and ensuring those who are affected do not have a further undue burden to contend with. In the probation department, we have continued to meet with members of our community in person, thus putting both them and us at elevated risk of exposure. And we need to know that if we do have to quarantine, we can do so on paid time that doesn't put us in debt to our employer. No one should ever have to choose between their paychecks and their health or the health of the well-being of their community. What's more, the pandemic has also disproportionately impacted people with children. With schools being closed and distance learning ongoing, the need for leave to care for our families is greater than ever. The FFCRA provided that need, and the county should ensure that it is reinstated to ensure continued protection for our essential workers and their families. Let me be clear. We are not seeking to grasp at any more than what we are owed. We are seeking equity. We are seeking the basic protections that we need that will allow us to continue to safely do the essential work of the county. And this goes for the small business relief package as well. We are all just looking to make it through to the other side of this crisis and survive with our heads above water. Vote yes to extend COVID leave. It is time to respect us, protect us, and pay us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6340. 6340. Oh, 3640. My apologies. It's 3640.
Good morning. My name is David Garcias. I'm president of SCIU Local 221. We urge you to vote yes on these items. The board has heard already from county employees that have depended on coronavirus leave to care for their loved ones and keep our families safe. I want you to assume that as a national organization, SCIU is working around the clock to ensure that an aggressive national recovery package passes that will pay for coronavirus leave, hazard pay, and other critical items. But today's action will allow many county employees the peace of mind to know that they can take the leave that they need. You're going to hear from just a few of the thousands of county employees that have dedicated themselves to serving the public during this incredibly difficult time. You have also heard from librarians who are pushing for a responsible reopening that protects workers and serves the public. Over the first few weeks of the years, we have heard this board talk about the changes and the values of this board. A vote today is going to signal that this board values workers, its workforce, not just through lip service, but through actions. We are grateful to Chairman Fletcher for putting this item forward last year and grateful to Supervisor Lawson-Remer for bringing this item back forward. We urge you to vote yes and support our workforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1795. 1795. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. If we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 9832. 9832.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is, Board of Supervisors and Chairperson Fletcher. My name is Jennifer Alonzo, and I am a member of the SCIU Local 221. I have worked for the County of San Diego for almost 2 years, and I work at the San Diego Central Jail to keep the public safe by caring for inmates and preventing them from spreading the coronavirus. As you all know, our County of San Diego has been greatly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite its lingering effects, the county continues to run with the hard work of its dedicated public workers who have been placed at higher risk of exposure to the virus since the very beginning. Without the dedicated individuals like myself and my colleagues, the county would not have been able to continue to provide essential services to the residents who are in most need of the assistance at this time. I'm here today to advocate that our county, our state, and our country invest in the hard work of our essential employees during this pandemic. These were hours spent tirelessly working to provide
care for those less fortunate. Our goal was to prevent the spread of the virus and the illness in those with the highest risk. If approved, hazard pay will be an incentive for all employees, making us feel valued and appreciated. It will allow for the recognition for all the hard work and sacrifice that was shown during this time. Our essential employees worked hard to keep our communities intact, safe, and healthy. Over the last 12 months, these county workers have offered their brave dedication and their support to the county residents, to all county residents.
Thank you.
We are now, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2639. 2639.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Andy, and I'm a member of SEIU Local 221 as well. I've worked for the county for 16 years in the probation department, which is a public safety area. The topic I'd like to bring before you today is the issue of hazard pay. The pandemic has been going on for roughly 10 months, and we are painfully aware of other companies that have given hazard pay. Examples of this include the San Diego Housing Commission, the San Diego Police Department, and various hospitals. There was money made available to county workers for this last year. By refusing to use that money for this urgent ongoing crisis, the county has shown that it does not value the essential work that we continue to do to keep the county running. Hazard pay continues the hard work. Hazard pay recognizes, the hard work that we are continue to do without interruption, and it directly impacts morale and productivity. Hazard pay also advances the goals of racial and economic justice. Some people are simply more impacted than others. This pandemic doesn't have any clear end in sight, and we continue to faithfully do our jobs and keep the daily essential tasks going. We deserve the same respect that many other public safety organizations are already getting in the form of hazard pay. The funding is already there. Please use it as it was intended. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5427. 5427.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Sofia Rodriguez. I'm a county worker and SIU 221 member for the past over 6 years. I am calling to support the item regarding the employee sick leave. I want to say that I am a survivor of COVID-19. Again, for emphasis, I'm a survivor of COVID-19. As someone who lives in the South Bay with the highest rate and contingency rates, as a woman of color, as someone who's currently pregnant, which is a pre-existing health condition, the county needs to support its workers. And I caught COVID-19 near the end of the year, so I did not qualify for the full 10-day sick leave, and I was expected to return work because, as the other speakers have said, I cannot go in debt with my employer to sick leave while being pregnant and taking care of a 2-year-old at home. I hope that the Board of Supervisors do approve this measure. We need support, and while the county is receiving accolades from bigger public figures such as Governor Newsom when he was here yesterday, it needs to be reminded that it is the county workers pushing this narrative forward, and we need support from the Board of Supervisors. Please approve this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7283. 7283.
My name is Robin Booker. Good morning to Chairman Fletcher and the board. And I'm a member of SEIU Local 221, and I've been with the county for 17 years in Sheriff Food Services as a senior cook. So I work in the jails. And we've experienced a difficult year, to say the least. Fear of the unknown and hazards unknown, unseen, not knowing what we were going to walk into on a daily basis, working with inmates side by side who were not properly PPE'd up. Yet and still, at the essential workers, we kept our professionalism and came to work and provided the services needed. So So hazard pay should be the acknowledgement and a thank you that we deserve. And it's the absolute least that we can get to recognize the people who keep on serving and keep the services going as needed. So thank you for doing that and for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7805. 7805.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher and supervisors. My name is Tim Macedo. I'm a human services specialist with the El Cajon Family Resource Center. I've been with the county about 3 years now. I can say I am fortunate that since the pandemic, I have been teleworking. The El Cajon Family Resource Center has had several, I believe about 3 outbreaks, including those prior to my teleworking. I spent a year at the front desk lobby. There was an outbreak amongst my coworkers, so I was very lucky that I was teleworking, so I didn't have COVID or get exposed to COVID. I will say that in the year that I was at the front desk in the lobby, I was exposed to scabies, MRSA on a normal, everyday experience. We come across people with various communicable diseases. So I am 100% behind both measures that are before you today. It's not an issue of whether we are exposed to hazards. It's if the county will step up and do the responsible thing to assist us and our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8619. 8619.
Hi, Supervisor, Chair Fletcher, Vice Chair Vargas, members of the Board of Supervisors. This is Richard Barrera from the San Diego Unified School Board. I just want to thank Supervisor Fletcher and Supervisor Lawson Reamer for bringing these items forward today. And most of all, just thank the county workers for being out there and taking care of our community, even while you've been putting your own health and safety at risk. Our district was able to use the Federal CARES Act money we received in the spring to provide hazard pay and extra PPE to our food service workers and others that have been out there working every day while we've been dealing with the pandemic. And so it's definitely a sign of commitment to your workforce that you're bringing these measures forward and honoring the work that our county workers do every day. So thank you so much for bringing this item forward.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0224. 0224.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher and supervisors. My name is Juanita Venegas, and I am a member of SEIU Local 221. I've worked at the county for 19 and a half years. I work as an adult protective services worker to keep the public safe by investigating allegations of abuse, neglect of the elderly and vulnerable adults in our community. I'm speaking to you today because I believe county workers, APS workers who are working out on the front lines, who are handling the COVID crises, should have equity in increase and hazard pay. As an APS worker, I have been vigilant and wearing my PPE gear in the office and when I go out and to do home visits. But unfortunately, I have encountered clients and their family members who are not adhering to the PPE guidelines. Because of this, I believe I had exposed my 84-year-old mother to COVID in December of 2020. We live in the same home, and unfortunately, she had become very ill. At the time, I had to take time off to care for her, and thank God she's better now. But I can't help to think that I had exposed my mom after visiting one of my clients' homes. I and many of my fellow APS coworkers are concerned because we do go into homes that we don't know if we're going to encounter clients and their families who are willing to wear their PPE gear. And I believe that the county needs to support workers that are working hard for the communities during this crisis. I am asking you that you protect us, respect us, and pay us hazard pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7498. 7498.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Melissa Elder, and I'm a volunteer with the Sunrise Movement San Diego, living in Chair Fletcher's district. And I'm calling to express my support for both of these items to support our county workers. They are on the front lines of handling this COVID crisis and should have increases, hazard pay, and paid sick leave to reward them for keeping the county's vital services functioning. These workers are putting themselves at risk and their families at risk to serve the public during this pandemic, and hazard pay recognizes their sacrifice and their hard work for this. We know that our county cannot run without these public workers, and by providing these support for them, we're recognizing and stepping up during this crisis to keep our communities safe and recognizing the work that they're doing. So please advance the goal of racial and economic justice by providing these services to our county workers, and make sure that they're able to take paid COVID-related leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0110. 0110.
Good morning. Hello, Chairperson Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Tiffany Lopez, and I am a member of SEIU Local 221. I have worked at the County of San Diego for 8 years. I work at the Public Defender's Office, and I'm an essential worker during the ongoing pandemic. I am urging the board to vote yes on the measure to extend COVID leave protections to county employees. We believe that President Biden will renew FFCRA and make it retroactive, so we ask the county to support this initiative locally through COVID leave until the federal bill is passed. The extension of paid COVID leave will protect county employees and the county and the community we serve. We should not be put in a position where we have to go into debt to our employer in order to quarantine and protect public health. The county must invest in its employees during this crisis. Also, there's a voice that's missing at this meeting: our staff who work in the libraries. Our librarians have recklessly been directed to resume in-person work in the middle of the pandemic. Because of this, I am here to present our union-wide petition on their behalf. It's been submitted to the board, and I request for it to be pulled up on the screen for your viewing. We have collected over 541 signatures, which demonstrates that there is a collective voice against the reopening of the libraries. Our union urges the board to protect our libraries and vulnerable communities by ending the practice of forcing COVID-19 exposed employees to report to work. Provide safe and equitable services such as online programming for diverse populations, technology rentals to bridge the digital divide, and expend hours for doorside service. Work collaboratively with stakeholder groups, including library staff, to develop an updated safety plan for appropriate in-person services before reopening. It is time to protect us, respect us, and pay us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7611. 7611.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Lizzie Womack, and I'm a member of SEIU Local 221. As I work as a Sheriff's Detention Supervising Nurse for the County of San Diego for 14 years at Las Colinas. We work to keep the public safe as an essential worker by screening, reviewing, and performing COVID-related testing due to not knowing the various population that's coming in to us. Staff is exposed daily to unknown medical conditions and behaviors prior to coming in. The county cannot run without public workers, and hazard pay will recognize our hard work as frontline workers. Handling the COVID crisis should have, the county workers should have equity increases in hazard pay. Approving hazard pay will acknowledge the value and show appreciation to the workers, protect us, pay us. and also in favor of paid county leave on item 10. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3540. 3540.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Marlon Mitchell, and I'm a member of SEIU Local 221. I have worked for the county for almost 23 years, 20 as a child support officer. Across county departments, many workers have risked their own health by going to county facilities to provide essential services to the public, both in person and in support roles. Since March of last year, our child support department has been a leader in the state in keeping our doors open to the public to provide essential services to San Diego families. Some child support offices in the state and surrounding states have been closed since March of last year. I work at our central office 1 day a week. I start my workday an hour early and marvel at the effort of our child support officers. Many have confided have pre-existing conditions who rotate in and meet with the public and support their teleworking coworkers. I am most impressed and thankful for our clerical staff who spend the most time in the office due to the nature of their work and have the least telework opportunities. Whether at county facilities or at home teleworking, county employees continue to provide essential services. I ask the board to strongly consider providing a reasonable stipend to offset costs county workers have incurred while teleworking and hazard pay for those that spend time in county offices and facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1795. 1795. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. If not, we will go to 7360. 7360.
Good morning, Chairman Fletcher and Board of Supervisors. My name is Nancy Pham, and I am a member of the SIU Local 221. I have worked for the County of San Diego for over 8 years with Aging Independent Services, Adult Protective Services, serving our most vulnerable adults in the community. This includes conducting unknown home visits to assess for abuse and neglect, which has increased during this pandemic due to isolation. Our county cannot run without public workers. As we have been required to work from home to decrease the spread of COVID-19 and community outbreaks, we have incurred operational costs to do so safely at home. This includes increasing our internet speed and running our electricity to respond efficiently to the need of the county. I've had to purchase an ergonomic desk, additional printing supplies to do my job effectively. We need a teleworking stipend to help support and provide the necessary tools and resources to fulfill our job requirements. We are essential and we are committed to do our job. We need to do our job, but we cannot do it without your support. We hope you take this into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And this is the final call for the speaker with last four digits, 1795. 1795, if you'd like to address the board on item 9 or 10, now is your opportunity.
Hello? Hello? Yes. Oh, hi. Good morning. My name is Ana Laura Martinez, and I am an organizer at the Center on Policy Initiatives and part of the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I am urging all Board of Supervisors to support the county to support the item 9 and 10. My mom was a CNA for the county for 14 years. Her colleagues share with her the fear of getting COVID while taking care of those most vulnerable. To slow the spread of the current wave of COVID-19 and future infectious diseases, it is vital that workers have paid sick leave to encourage them to stay home at the first sign of symptoms, and if they are infected, to remain at home for the duration. If sick people are forced to return to work, it is likely that they will spread the virus to coworkers and to their customers, clients, or patients. Ensuring paid sick days is critical to ensure workers stay home when sick or able to tend to a loved one in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. As advocates for worker justice, as advocates for workers of the county, we urge you to please vote for item 9 and 10. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that concludes the public testimony on items 9 and 10. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you all, and thank you to the callers who called in. Let's start with agenda item 9. We will take this one first, and we can discuss and work through this, and then we'll move to item 10. Agenda item 9 was brought forward jointly by Supervisors Anderson and Lawson Reamer, and I thought first maybe I would open the floor to them if they have any opening comments they would like to make on these items. And we have two, obviously, dissimilar things in one board letter, so we'll try and work through each of those.
You're mute.
Thank you so much, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson, would you like to start us off?
You know what? I'd be happy to. And you make it easy. I want to thank you for bringing this item forward. I thought your thoughtful approach was a terrific balance. We have, I know that people don't think in these terms, but when you look at my district, many of the constituents I represent live in abject poverty. And when you are living on the edge and you're working in the service industry and your employer has to lay you off because of COVID enforcement, because the pandemic's here, you're really suffering. And, you know, I think that for many people, they may not fully understand what these people go through, but having just come off a campaign where I knocked on doors and spoke to people and got to know them and understand their challenges, when you are faced being unemployed and you run out of resources, the first thing you want to preserve is food. The second thing is your car. The third is your house. And the fourth thing is insurance. And if you don't have enough money for all those things, you cut your insurance first, then housing. You keep the car because that's where you've moved to, and you're trying to feed your family. So moving this money forward to keep employers alive, to keep these people employed, is so important to our community. The other counterbalance is giving a lifeline to those who have to provide in the county for family members and for themselves who are suffering from COVID. I think it's very, very important too. So I want to thank my joint board member. I'm trying to think of the correct termination. I know what it is in the legislature, but here it's a little new. But bottom line is, I thought this was very thoughtful. And again, I'd like to thank Supervisor Lawson Reamer for her thoughtfulness and approach towards this issue. But I love it when we all can come together to lift those in our community, and I ask that people support it.
Thank you so much. Chair Fletcher, can I share a couple remarks as well?
Please do.
Thank you very much. You know, as Chair Fletcher mentioned, this item does impact two different issues, both that squarely address supporting folks in our communities that have been really unfairly and disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. To begin with, just want to acknowledge and thank the testimony of the county employees who showed up at our board meeting today, because this vote supports county employees by providing COVID paid sick leave, which the federal government had allowed to expire in December 2020. Over 1,250 county employees have contracted COVID, from nurses to behavioral health specialists to sheriff deputies. And we are sending a clear signal to county staff with this item that they will be and are supported through the pandemic by this new Board of Supervisors. And I just want to say again to our incredibly hardworking county employees that you will not be penalized for following self-isolation guidance, following a positive COVID test, and you will not be penalized for caring for COVID positive for sick family members. So thank you so much for showing your support, and we are here to show our support for you as well in these difficult times. I also want to speak a bit about the proposal to support our small businesses. As we approach the one-year mark of this pandemic, it is more important than ever to be supporting our small business community. Small businesses are unfairly suffering through no fault of their own, bearing the brunt of this public health crisis. From restaurants to retail shops to hair salons, these business owners and community leaders have been asked to sacrifice their livelihood for the sake of the greater good. And we're not talking about big corporations with deep pockets and shareholders or easy access to bank loans. This item directly aims to support the startup mom and pop shops that are struggling to keep doors open, struggling to keep staff employed, and struggling to keep serving our communities. We must support these small businesses, not only because they are the backbone of our local economy, and not only because they will be critical partners in San Diego's economic recovery, but because it is the right thing to do. This vote provides a minimum of $30 million to deploy a third round of the Small Business Stimulus Grant Program. It builds on the success of the prior rounds of the program, which deployed nearly $48 million to over 7,700 small businesses. These funds will be used to support small businesses who are in full compliance with public health guidelines and agree to stay in compliance with those guidelines. So I urge my fellow supervisors and my colleagues to support this item today so we can provide the support that our county employees so desperately need in this difficult time, as well as support our small business community that has been unfairly impacted by COVID and help them get through the next couple months as we struggle towards a resolution of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to commend the two supervisors for bringing forward this item. It was last year I was pleased to establish this program initially, and we were able to, as has been mentioned, put forward $47.5 million into help for our small businesses. And I think it is appropriate that we recognize the challenge that our small businesses have faced and do what we can. I had one comment and one question for either of the folks who bring it. As I read the recommendation, it's basically to develop the program, and then once we identify state or federal funding, then bring it back to the Board of Supervisors for it to be appropriated. And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This would work to establish it, but it would take an additional action by the board to actually put the $30 million into action. Is that both of yours understanding?
It is. I think our concern, I don't mean to speak ahead of our colleague, but we wanted to waste no time. When those federal monies come, we want to be able to turn them the same day they arrive, as opposed to not being prepared for them as quickly as we could be. Supervisor Lawson-Remer, what do you think?
Yeah, the intention here, and thank you, Chair Fletcher, was to be prepared with this program so that we can get these resources out the door the minute our federal funding arrives. I was actually speaking with Congressman Mike Levin yesterday, and very much anticipating that these funds will be here at the county sometime in the beginning of March. So we just didn't want to have to wait another board meeting to move that forward. But we don't have those funds yet. So we wanted to make sure that they could be moved out the door the minute that they are sent our way by the federal action.
Okay, but I totally get that's your intent. The board letter you wrote says the grant application portal will not accept applications, and disbursement of checks will not occur until after federal and or state stimulus funds are identified for the program and appropriated by the Board of Supervisors, signifying an additional action by the board to appropriate them. So that would be a separate action. Now we could rapidly convene. I mean, we can do an emergency board meeting on short notice and turn it around quickly. Given once we know what is in the federal effort, then we could convene and appropriate those funds. And I think if necessary, we could certainly move very quickly to do that. The only reason I think the way you wrote it, I think is a good approach is we don't know exactly what's going to come out of the federal system. And I think it's unlikely, but you could have a scenario where they make 1.9 trillion available to small businesses, and the county might only get 30 million that it needs for vaccines, or we may want to do more than 30 million. So I guess the question is kind of as written, it will require us to come back. We could do it very rapidly. We could even have a special meeting after the federal one passes, and then maybe we want to do more or maybe a little less, we could see, but it would get the program set up and established. So I guess my question for the two supervisors who brought it forward is, do you want to continue on the way it's drafted with an understanding that the program would be developed and then we would rapidly convene a meeting to appropriate it and open the application window?
Supervisor Anderson, do you have a view?
I'm content moving forward in the direction that you see fit.
Okay. So I think we're all on the same page. It's just working out the details,
Right.
of how we do it. I think it'd be good if we haven't designed the program, get the program ready, and then once the federal bill passes and we know it's signed, we're not going to get the funds overnight anyway. Then if we don't have a board meeting within time we think we would actually receive them, then we could convene a special meeting and we could do it. But that also gives us a little flexibility, right? Maybe we want to do a little more, maybe something else happens, but I think it gets the ball moving. So I think the way it's written again gives us that flexibility. I don't think it'll impede our speed at all.
Having the framework was the goal. So
that's exactly right. Okay,
compromise.
Good. I think we're on the same page there. The second thing I want to point out, just for clarification, that I think is good, is authorizing the chief administrative officer to execute the grant agreements and other actions. The prior board went in a different direction, with each office having to evaluate each of these grant applications and make the decisions. I do think it is more appropriate that we have county staff do that. They're more skilled at this. I'll also just share with you all that just for my district alone, we received $581 million of requests that we had to process. And so I think going this direction with the CAO, and I think we would want to make clear we're giving the CAO the flexibility to either administer that in-house or to have a third-party provider if that's easier for them, again, with the goal of moving swiftly through this. And so I think that is a positive thing. And then the third thing I just want to point out is a little bit of a technical issue, and I just think we should discuss for a minute. Under section 2 of eligible businesses, number 6, it says must not be located in an incorporated city that has an active small business stimulus program as of the date the application window opens. The only potential unintended consequence there is that if we pass this, every city will simultaneously close their business application until we have exhausted all of our funds, and then they will restart them. And so what we're inadvertently doing, and I get the intent, this is very similar to rental assistance. If we have county funds, the city has funds, they should use their funds. So the intent I get, but we don't want to create the unintended consequence that they would all close their application the day ours open, draw down our funds, and then restart theirs. And so I would just ask, maybe we can give staff a little bit of flexibility to design a couple options that we could consider when we come back to finally appropriate it, that might help us avoid that situation, maybe create some incentives. So if you're both okay, and again, we would have the ability to decide. We just give staff, they could do it consistent with section 6, or if they think there's a more efficient way to design the program, and then they could bring us a few options.
I think that's I mean, if you want to phrase that in the form of a friendly amendment, maybe, directing county staff to ensure that, we have equity across incorporated and unincorporated areas, taking into account that there's other business grant windows or something like that. But if you have a sort of a frame, a way that you want to amend this, I think that would support that intent of providing some flexibility.
What I'd probably suggest is that we would just direct staff as they develop the program to come back with options designed to maximize county impact across our region, with the understanding that they're going to play around with that role of cities that have them open versus don't. Does that work?
Supervisor Anderson?
Yeah, that's fine with me. One other item we might want to consider too is for some of these companies, they've moved their staff from full-time to part-time because they're on skeleton crews, and we might want to look at a full-time equivalent and not just full-time because everything's kind of changed, and giving staff an opportunity to look at that and what it would look like.
Okay.
The goal is to serve and help as many people as possible, I believe.
Got it. I think both of those we could encapsulate by just directing staff to develop options to maximize regional impact, and they will, consistent with our discussion, regional impact through an equity lens. Okay, good. All right, Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. And I wanted to say both thank you to Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Terrell for bringing this forth. And I do want to make sure that I say that I support the premise. I just have a couple of concerns, and some of them have been addressed with Chair Fletcher's comments, but I want to make sure that as we're making these decisions, and I do agree that ensuring that the CAO administers the funding, I think is the right direction, or a third party, just because I think otherwise it raises more questions. But I wanted to get your thoughts about where the equity piece around this, and I understand that Chair Fletcher just mentioned it, but I'm trying to better understand, because I know that there are communities within the County of San Diego that have been impacted harder than others as a result of COVID-19. And so looking at everyone equally and not really thinking about specific industries that have been impacted, right? Like restaurants, hospitality, tourism, areas where there's high infection rates like South Bay or downtown areas, or traditionally underrepresented populations from a financial standpoint, includes business of color, English learners, women, et cetera. And really maybe thinking about like census tract that have like highest rates of poverty or unemployment, to really address how we take a look at how the dissemination of the funds will be. So I have a lot more questions specific to that. And I was wondering maybe if those are some of the answers that we can direct staff to bring additional more information on that. It would be helpful for me to be able to, so that I could support this motion.
Vice Chair, staff could certainly work on that as part of what we would come back with in designing the program, and we could talk with each office to get your input on what you think would be an equitable distribution.
Fantastic.
I believe that's the request.
Yes, ma'am. And then on the second part of the item, is there was sort of two pieces to it, right? But the second part, in terms of the county frontline workers and essential workers compensation and that framework, I really just want to emphasize that I support the work that our employees have done during this pandemic and have for many years. And the proposed hazard teleworking payments for approximately 18,000 county employees is really critical. I'm sorry, I thought we were in the wrong one. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so I support the motion to also make sure that we are providing those resources.
Can I just add something, Chair Fletcher? When we wrote the board letter, we did not have the intent that the CAO's office would be distributing the funds. It was meant to replicate the program last time. Just to be clear, we were directing the CAO to design the program that could then be that they would then be processing the applications on the back end and dispersing, but our offices would still be accepting them. That being said, we don't feel strongly that that is the right approach. We were building on what had been done previously. So just to clarify, we actually intended for the offices to distribute the funds. But if having done that yourself, if your suggestion is that this didn't work, maybe we need to better clarify in the letter that it is as you read it, because that is not how we had intended to write it.
Got it. And I'll just say again, we went through this before, and the prior board kind of wanted each office to do it. And, our offices are set up to make policy, not to procure contracts. And so I just didn't think it was necessarily the best approach, but we can do it either way. We did it the other way before. And again, you're just going to have a significant volume. I mean, again, just my office alone, almost $600 million of requests in very small amounts. And so my suggestion, we could do it either way, but my suggestion would be authorize the chief administrative officer to, execute the grant agreements and other actions. But
yeah, I mean, just to say, I think if that's already how it's easy to be read, then I think I will accept that reading, certainly. Okay. I think our intention, however, was to sort of build on what you had done previously with ensuring that there was sort of a distribution of grants across all the districts. So, I think then the lens we would have to ask county staff to take would be to ensure that there was like a plan to have some sort of equity across districts on the distribution of those grants, even though the application process would be running through the CAO's office.
Got it. Okay. Supervisor Desmond.
A lot of discussion here. I appreciate, Supervisor Lawson-Remer and Anderson bringing this item forward. I'm fully in support of the family paid sick leave policy. I think that's great. I'm glad to hear that we're picking that up. Hopefully the feds will pick that up again as well. Lots of discussion though on this, on the 30 million to be distributed. You know, it was a lot of work, but I think we each know our districts best, and to have Helen or our CAO disperse the funds, it is a lot of work, and we got a lot more requests for the money we had. But you know, my district's a lot different than, you know, any other districts, and I think we kind of know our own better, and I think we might be able to serve them better by distributing. I guess we have staff or the CAO, you know, vet these and make sure they're, you know, worthy, or they pass all the tests, or they meet all the criteria, and then they come to our offices. I think that would be fine, but I still think each office should distribute that. And then as far as the equity lens, you know, this is, and I understand I supported the, you know, the equity lens as far as, you know, I think it was at the last meeting where we decided, you know, in distribution of funds, we should take a look through at that. But on this one, I like the fact that this is an equal amount being distributed by district as a way it was written. And primarily because these are small business stimulus grants. These aren't going to individuals. These are going to small businesses. And the business closures, unlike COVID, the businesses were shut down countywide by sector. You know, whereas COVID, you know, the positive cases were much more localized. And I think when we give out money for rental assistance and we give out money to individuals, then that health equity lens would play a greater role. But with the business stimulus grants, I mean, businesses downtown San Diego and Borrego and Julian, Alpine, Oceanside were all affected the same equally by the shutdown. So also, I appreciate you, Chair Fletcher, bringing up the fact of the eligibility with other cities. I have it as items, or number 7 in my agenda. I don't know if we got different, maybe I didn't get the latest version, but you were calling item 6, was basically the unincorporated, if a city had a stimulus project or program, if the city had a program in place that they couldn't apply for county funds. Well, you know, and I think as you pointed out, that really disincentivizes cities from even doing it. You know, why would they do it? Or maybe they just shut it down until our window is closed. So I'm glad you brought that up. You know, to me, I'd like just to see that stricken to where, you know, a lot of these cities, you know, we have 18 cities and a lot of them are pretty small and they don't have large stimulus programs. So a business within that city shouldn't be not allowed to apply for ours if the city has it, one in place. And the other consideration I kind of looked at was the number of employees. And previously we had it at businesses 100 employees or less. What's proposed is to drop it down to 20 employees, which is pretty small. And as it was pointed out earlier, some of these businesses, you know, I don't know if it's active employees or full-time equivalents, because if some businesses laid off and they only have 20 people now, but they normally would have 100 or 50 or whatever the case may be. I just think it's kind of limiting. And if a supervisor, or even if we direct Helen, if she's giving it out, but if a supervisor wants to give to businesses or predominantly to businesses with 20 or fewer, we have that option. I think to limit all of us to 20 or fewer is a bit restrictive. So I would like to ask that at least the in the process that not only include the fact that you brought up, Chair, about the cities having a program in place, that not to restrict them there. I'd also like to see the restriction or go back to 100 employees or less versus the 20, if that's okay with the, I don't know if a motion's been made or not, but if that's okay with the people, you know, to the Supervisor Lawson-Remer and Anderson.
I'll speak to that. Thank you, Supervisor Desmond, for your thoughts. You know, that was actually quite intentional, right? I mean, I understand that we need to make sure that we're not, you know, that folks, we want to be inclusive, but, you know, there's a long history of companies that are more sophisticated operators being able to really jump to the head of the line. I think we all saw what happened with the original round of the Paycheck Protection Program that the federal government administered. And the intention of this program is to really support our small local businesses who've been struggling. And I think Supervisor Anderson spoke very eloquently about the challenges that business owners and mom and pop shops have faced in his district. You've put everything on the line to invest their life savings in getting a business started to only see those life savings evaporate by a pandemic. So that is what the intention of this is to support. And so, you know, I appreciate Chair Fletcher's very constructive suggestions on how to move this forward. But in terms of the intent, Supervisor Desmond, we're not trying to support our multi-billion-dollar companies here with this $30 million grant window. It is a small business program for small businesses.
Well, and it was not my intent to hand out money to multi-billion-dollar businesses. A lot of businesses have. I had a small business in the 90s, and I had 35 employees, and so I wasn't a huge conglomerate, but it just. I don't know. I appreciate your comments on this, and I appreciate the time and effort you put into it. So I'll still be supporting it. I just think it's a little restrictive, but thank you.
Supervisor Anderson, do you have any thoughts on the employee number?
You know, I'm okay with, look, if we're able to give out $3 or $5 grand, and I don't know how much money we're going to have to give out, but for a sole proprietor who has a coffee shop and it's on wheels and he's got 2 other employees with him, that's the difference between surviving and not surviving. That 5,000 going to a much larger corporation business isn't going to make a tipping point difference in whether they stay open or not, because their problems are much greater than $5 grand or $3 grand. So I like the smaller number. The only issue that I see is when we have it based on employees and not necessarily work equivalent hours, some of these folks may have 21 employees, but they only have 10 full-time jobs because people are working 2 hours here and 2 hours there because they're all scrambling. Some of them are college students and they're not coming back. There's a lot of factors. So from that standpoint, I'd be willing to be a little bit flexible, but the notion of opening up to companies that $5 grand's not going to be a tipping point, that's not my first choice. On a separate note, our districts are woefully different, and preserving some influence that our offices have on how that money is distributed. I love that the county has staff, they can gear up quickly, they can process this stuff quickly, but I do think that our offices have to have some input in that process. So I don't know where we end up, but I'm very open moving forward. I'm grateful that this board is looking to be prepared for the money that's coming from the feds and that our constituents are going to be the benefactors. So I hope that's conclusive enough.
So I will, so on that couple items there, I think it seems like there's a general sense the majority of the board would like the supervisorial offices to select the individual recipients. That is how we did it last time. And again, it's a considerable workload, but if that's nothing inappropriate about it, we certainly can do that. So I think that's easy. On the number of employees, I mean, I'll just share our experience. About 90% of our applicants had 20 or fewer employees. And so the bulk of them out there. And then when you take the volume of requests you're going to get, what you're going to end up doing is telling about 97% of the people who ask you for help, you're going to tell them no. And so again, if each office wants to do that, that's entirely fine. That's where we're going. But you know, again, I mean, we had $600 million of requests for very little. So what we chose to do as an office, and again, each office has some latitude here. was to Supervisor Anderson, to your point, we look for those businesses that 2,500 or $5,000 would really make a difference and really help them. And none of those had more than 20 employees. Because if you have more than 20 employees, 2,500 or 5,000 is not going to help you. And then the federal funds, at least in the past, have been more geared towards helping the larger ones. And so I think I'm probably with you there on leaving that at 20. You will have exponentially more requests from 20 or fewer than you have money to divvy out. So I think on the first issue, I think if we have the CAO design the program with the individual businesses selected being determined by each office, then we can do that. And that was how we did it before, and that's entirely fine. I think if we leave the 20 in there. On the equity piece, I think this is one maybe, since it's going to come back and we're going to make a final decision when we appropriate. It isn't as I read this, it isn't equity based on case counts, because Supervisor Desmond is right. Case counts are how you should appropriate PPE, vaccination sites, testing sites, things that are directly related. But I do think it would be good for staff to take a look at the number of small businesses in each district. We know that some districts people tend to live in more. Those districts people tend to live in more, tend to get more money in rental assistance, right? We don't divvy up rental assistance by district because not every district has the same number of renters, right? It is a little bit based on need. And some districts will have more small businesses than others. It doesn't mean we have to allocate it that way, but given we're directing staff to develop options designed to maximize regional input with an equity lens, then they can bring us back some options, and then we can look at what they come up with, and then we can quickly decide which way we wanted to go. Do we just want to do a straight across the board per district, or is there, perhaps a different way? And so maybe we just give them a little bit of flexibility to work on that, knowing that we will have the final say on exactly what that allocation is when it comes back.
Chair Fletcher, just to clarify, your proposal is that they, in addition to what you had mentioned previously, that they come back with some analysis regarding the distribution of small businesses across the county, and that we could take that into account in looking at how the funds are allocated. Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, so what we talked about was giving them a little bit of flexibility to maximize regional impact. And some of that was taking into account some options about, if a city has a grant program. And I think in that same develop options designed to maximize regional impact, they also could take a look at some options around, should it just be a straight allocation based on district, or is there some formula that takes into account, one or district or another may have significantly more small businesses, and how we would want to do that. And then ultimately we would decide which way we want to go whenever it comes back for the appropriation.
I think that's extremely insightful. So Supervisor Anderson would have to agree, but if that's a friendly amendment, I think that's a direction that makes a lot of sense to have that data.
And then we can decide. Then we'll have some options. So
yeah.
Supervisor Vargas, is that from before?
Yeah, that was no. I was trying to. That actually answers some of my questions. I was having a hard time. I keep going back to the fact that COVID has impacted our communities very differently throughout the county. And so the equity piece is very concerning to me, and I'm still waiting to figure out how much resources are going to come down. But I would never, first of all, I really support the spirit of the motion, number one, and number two, you have a sick leave for county workers as part of this, and I would never vote against that. And so I will support it. I will support the motion and wait for additional information from the CAO and our teams, because I am really concerned about equity and how we distribute our resources for many years. It hasn't been equitable in this county how resources are distributed into our communities that are hardest hit, including in many of your districts. And so I will wait, but I will support the motion.
Okay. So where we are, I think what we'll do, let's vote on recommendation 1, and I'll walk through what it is. And then we'll do a second vote on recommendations 2 through 6. They're kind of fundamentally dissimilar things. And so they're kind of in the same letter, but I think we can just do a clean on each one. So we have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Lawson-Remer, to approve recommendation 1, being very clear that each office will choose the recipients of the grants. That seems to be the direction we want to go. With the added line that staff will develop options designed to maximize regional impact through an equity lens. And again, that's just options, and then we will decide when we come back for the appropriation. So it would be recommendation 1 with that sentence added to it. And then we all have the understanding that when these federal funds come available, if we don't have a regularly scheduled board meeting before we believe we will receive them, then we will convene one so that we can finalize this, appropriate the money, and be able to move rapidly. So with that, we have that motion from Supervisor Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Any final thoughts on adopting amended recommendation number 1?
Yes, I just want to clarify, Nathan. I thought the way you described, you gave direction to county staff in terms of the considerations of within equity should be noted, because you did a really nice job of illustrating sort of issues around equity across districts, considerations of distribution of where there are more or less small businesses, that these are the kinds of considerations that, among others, that you've identified. And I wanted to make sure that didn't get lost.
Yep, got it. All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye, Vargas.
Chair Fletcher?
Let's try.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Wonderful. Thank you both for bringing that item forward, and thank you all for the robust discussion. Now, why don't we adopt the paid family leave components, items 2 through 6. Is there a motion to approve those 2 items?
I'd like to make a motion. Go ahead.
No, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Lawson-Remer, a second by Supervisor Anderson. I commend you both. This is a great program. I think it's a good step that we take, and we certainly hope other funding will arrive, but I think it's the right thing for us to do now. Any other comments on this item?
Mr. Chair, this is Helen. I just want to make sure that the supervisors understand that if this is voted, we will be bringing this back for a comp ordinance change. So that would come back at the next board meeting and then require a second reading the 16th. And then all of this would be retroactive to January 1st. Thank you.
All right. We have a motion by Supervisor Lawson-Remer, second by Supervisor Anderson. This is a 4-vote item. If there's no other comments, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, number 9's done. Now let's do 10. Agenda item 10 was brought forward by Supervisor Lawson-Remer, and I am thrilled to see this come forward. This was something we considered as a board but did not do a year ago. It's something we were able to do at MTS and other locations. And so I certainly appreciate this. And Supervisor Lawson-Remer, I don't know if you'd like to make some introductory comments on agenda item 10.
Sure, I would be happy to. And again, thank you so much, Chair Fletcher, for having led the way on this, before we were on the board. And hopefully now we will, with a new composition of the board, actually be able to take some action. The action we're hoping to take today is to treat our essential county workers like they are, in fact, essential. To be clear, frontline workers are out there risking COVID every single day, and they deserve hazard pay. This has been abundantly clear over the past year when we shut down and most of us work from home, but frontline staff just kept showing up, risking their health in order to serve the public good in our community. And we're talking here about public health nurses, staff who operate skilled nursing facilities, social workers who are making sure older adults and foster children are not falling through the cracks in this time of crisis. They have to leave the house every day, knowing they may bring coronavirus back home. And unfortunately, no amount of mask wearing or physical distancing will change the fact that they are out in public and more likely to be exposed to COVID-19 despite precautions taken. And what we're really talking about here is crisis pay, and it should come from crisis funding. So my expectation is that the federal appropriations to adjust COVID are going to be the solution here. This vote also acknowledges and provides for employees who are working remotely and incurring additional costs to work from home. Costs like purchasing equipment, printers, headsets, increased electricity usage, wireless connectivity. And while this action is just for county employees, I believe every essential worker, regardless of where they're employed, should be financially acknowledged for their contributions during this crisis. Grocery clerks, teachers, the list goes on. As a supervisor, I can't give them a raise as much as I want, but we can set an example here. And that's what this vote is about today. So I look forward to seeing this return to the board after staff meets and confers with our employees to determine what a fair hazard pay a compensation will look like. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll take that as a motion. A motion to approve, which I'm happy to second. Any discussion items from the board on this? Supervisor Anderson.
I have nothing but respect for all those employees, but I represent a district that includes a lot of very poor people. I represent the second poorest city in the county, in some of the poorest areas of the unincorporated county. And when I look at it, if you took the average salary and benefits of our county staff, it's just over 124,000. If you look at my district, it's under 67,000 as a whole. But when you start looking at the poor areas, they meet the poverty line for San Diego County. Their income is under 25,000 for a family of four. So for me to turn around and give hazard pay and additional bonuses to people that have some of the best healthcare coverage, while others in my district will be paying healthcare penalties because they can't afford their own healthcare and they can't produce the form on their taxes. When we have folks that are unemployed or underemployed, they'd give their right arm to work for the county. And for me to turn around and step on them and mistreat them by voting for this and not understand their plight, it's unfair for me to do. So while I appreciate the goal, and I think our county employees are absolutely fantastic, none of these people that I'm talking about, the majority of my district, they don't have guaranteed retirements, they don't have guaranteed health care, and they don't have guaranteed employment. And I think it's just too hard for me to get there at this time. But as far as my appreciation for our county employees, they're fabulous. And the fact that they chose careers that to serve their fellow citizens tells us what generous people they are and what wonderful people they are. But at the end of the day, I can't lift those that have by stepping on those who don't have. And I'm more focused on what I can do to lift those people in my community. But people who are making more than $100,000, who have medical care and guaranteed retirements, if they don't like their jobs and they think it's unfair, there's about 1,000 people in my district lined up to take those positions. And I can't turn my back on those people that I represent. So at this time, I won't be supporting this, but not because I don't believe the county employees are good people, because I know they are. And I know that the intentions are well, but we have to lift everybody in our community, not just some.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Real quick before we go to Supervisor Desmond, if I can just get clarification from the CAO or from council, this is just to begin negotiations. Any actual hazard pay approval or allocation or appropriation would have to come back to the board. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the way I interpret this board letter. It's to direct us to go meet with all of the various union groups, and I believe we have 9 that we would be meeting with, and then coming back to the board with recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And that in no way diminishes the validity of Supervisor Anderson's comments. I just want us to know we're not voting to appropriate anything. It's just voting to negotiate, see what they might come up with while we look at what other funding might come in and what our other options are. So the ultimate decision on doing it or not doing it will come at a future board meeting. This is just to consider it or to begin talking about it with employee groups. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that clarification there. this past year has been difficult for everyone. And I too would like to thank our county employees for their continued resilience, during these unprecedented times, all the vaccination stations, the testing, all the effort that's gone in here in the last year for COVID has been outstanding. I mean, the San Diego County has really risen to the task and done a great job. And you're the backbone of the essential services that we provide to over 3 million of our residents, especially many of the county workers who are on the front lines, delivering those essential services. I'm very thankful for everything you've done. And if we had an abundant amount of money and resources, then yes, then everybody deserves more right now. However, we have people in our county that haven't earned a paycheck in almost a year. We have entire sectors of the economy, tourism, weddings, outdoor activities that are still closed, and they just can't be able to open here. There are business owners that have drained their life savings to simply survive. The people who've lost everything should actually be the priority for crisis funding, I think, at this time. And while I'm grateful that the county hasn't had to downsize any of the county workforce, there's been no layoffs at the county. And any additional available funding, I think, should go to those who haven't received a paycheck in the last year. Our focus right now is and should continue to be on vaccinations. I'm getting everyone as quickly vaccinated as possible and getting that out so we can, turn the corner for everybody. I'd like to see that be the focus and that be the emphasis instead of going and negotiating with the labor unions at this point in time. I think that should be our focus, the vaccinations, getting that out, and not the negotiations at this time. So for that reason, I'm not going to be able to support the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Any other board member comments on this item? Supervisor Vargas?
Yes. So I wanted to, I want to support this motion specifically. I think that if we think about, folks like Rhonda Felder who risked their lives in the county to do the work and who are every day at the front lines, whether at our libraries or in different areas. And I understand we're taking every precaution. I think it makes sense for us as a board to make sure that we take this information back to our CAO and to work closely with our workers to identify what is it that we can do to really acknowledge the sacrifices that they've made. And I understand both Supervisor Desmond's and Anderson's comments because, the communities in my district have been greatly impacted by, I have some of the highest rates of unemployment in my community in Barrio Logan and Sherman Heights as a result of COVID-19. But I do think that our workers are the backbone of this county. And by beginning these conversations, I think it's the first step to figure out how we can acknowledge everything that they've done and ensure that they get their fair share as well. So I will support this motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Vargas. We have a motion and a second. And again, this is just to begin negotiations to talk, see what options may be there. Any hazard pay proposal that was worked out with employee groups would have to come back, and that would be a 4-vote item. I do think it is important for us to know that 3 votes, we can direct county staff to begin exploring some options. The actual awarding of any hazard pay would be an appropriation outside of budget, which would require 4 votes. So anything future that comes back would take that. Supervisor Anderson?
I know money's tight. Nothing that the county can bring back to me is going to change my vote. And I don't want to waste the county's time. Perhaps one of our other colleagues would vote yes at a future date when seeing it. But, I've got grocery clerks, I've got frontline folks who aren't making it financially and don't make anywhere close to $100,000 with benefits and everything else. So I can tell you that there's no way in heck I'm going to vote for this. However, reestablishing the paid family sick leave policy seemed very fair and reasonable, and I want to protect our employees. But at the same token, so moving forward, I just want to make sure that you understand that we could have staff moving forward on a project that will not earn my vote during this pandemic.
Fair enough. Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Yeah, I pretty much share the same sentiments. Let's get through this. Let's get through this COVID, issue before we start giving, I guess, rewards. And everybody is deserving, and everybody's done a fantastic job. But let's get through this. Maybe at the end, at the outcome, then we say, if we got money left over, if we got dollars that weren't spent, then we can maybe pat each other on the back. But we're still in the thick of this, and vaccine should be the focus right now. So I kind of doubt that I probably won't be supporting it when it comes back as well.
Thank you both. With that, we've got a motion and a second. Any other board comments? Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
No.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
No.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye, Vargas.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes with Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. We've got about 25 minutes here until we're going to break for lunch. So let's try to get a couple of these other ones. I think we'll be a little quicker out of the way. Then we'll break for lunch. We will come back and do the COVID-related items after lunch. So let's begin with agenda item 3. I know this was requested to be pulled by the public. I'll ask the clerk if those public speakers, if anyone is called in to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'll note for the record that we received 3 e-comments on this item, and we have 5 requests to speak. For those individuals that requested to speak on item 3, this is the entitled Receive the First 5 San Diego 2020 Annual Report. I would ask all those individuals to please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. The speakers will hear a notification that their call has been unmuted, and then you'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. We're waiting for the callers to join the meeting at this time. Again, any individuals who requested to speak on item 3, please dial into the conference line now.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting for the speakers, let me introduce Alethea Argales. She's here to answer any questions that may arise from the board members. Thank you. She's a wonderful executive director of the Climate Commission, and I just wanted to make sure she got some acknowledgement. So thank you, Alethea, for being here today.
Yeah, and I want to echo those as chair of the first 5, Alethea. What you all do is incredible work, and I think this is a wonderful report and update on the plans for what's happening ahead.
Thank you. And it looks like we have a couple callers dialing in. For those callers, again, please state your name for the audio record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. Erin, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, thank you. Our first caller is 2807. 2807. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. 2807, you may proceed. If you don't respond when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next caller is 0065. 0065. Again, you each need to press *6.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Supervisors. My name is Lucia Garay, and I am the Executive Director of Early Education Services and Programs at the San Diego County Office of Education, and I reside in District 1. I am speaking in support of First 5 San Diego, and in particular to the foundational support it has provided to early learning and care over the years. The San Diego County Office of Education has been funded by First 5 since 2006
to operate the Preschool for All and later the Quality Preschool initiatives. The focus has always been on improved early learning experiences for young children that are inclusive of developmental screening, referrals, parent education, and increasing the quality of early development settings by working directly with the adults, providing care and learning experiences for our youngest citizens. The new initiative launched last June, Learn Well, specifically focuses on strengthening the existing system structures and the skills of the adults working directly with children. While QPI focused on improving quality in preschool settings, Learn Well expands this outreach to include those providing services to infants and toddlers, private centers, and family childcare homes, giving equitable access to all learning and care providers. First 5 San Diego is a valued, respected, and innovative partner that exemplifies integrated leadership focused on maximizing the potential of our youngest citizens within the constructs of the adults surrounding the child. The annual report highlights how, as the pandemic came upon us, First 5 quickly collaborated and provided SDCOE the flexibilities to reallocate funds from our original budget to provide almost $500,000 for childcare vouchers for essential workers and close to another $500,000 for provider stipends, materials, and cleaning supplies to providers who maintain their doors open. This quick action by First 5 provided bridge funding until other funds allocated by this Board of Supervisors, the City of San Diego, and the state materialized.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Our next caller is 7554. 7554.
Hi, thank you, Chair Fletcher and esteemed Board of Supervisors. My name is Erin Hogeboom, and I'm Director of San Diego for Every Child. We are a countywide initiative of passionate individuals and organizations committed to cutting the experience of child poverty across our region. I'm calling in today in a demonstration of our collective and unremitting support and appreciation for First 5 San Diego, as well as our broader desire for a county plan to significantly invest in quality early care and healthy development. What science shows is that the first 1,000 days of a child's life are the most critical years for brain development. There's over 1 million neuron connections formed every second during this time in a period, this period in a child's life. That's 80% of the brain, and that development is particularly crucial to educational success. The whole San Diego County educational community is striving towards the goal that all children read on level by 3rd grade, and this is strongly correlated with high school graduation. The work of First 5 San Diego, in particular Healthy Development Services, is absolutely critical as a building block in these efforts. However, continuing to support and grow the robust First 5 network of services is just the beginning. We are not asking that we simply return to preliminary First 5 funding levels, which have been falling year by year. We are insisting that First 5 San Diego be supported as a part of an ecosystem of county-level foundational investment in early care and development. If we as a community choose to invest in the essential first 5 years of every young San Diegan's life, we are helping them to build their lifelong resilience, as well as helping to shape the San Diego of tomorrow. This means easy access to quality early care and learning, healthy development services, and well-supported family resources. First 5 San Diego is the county's mechanism for the glue across these important infrastructures, all of which must be continued to built out and funded in their own right. Throughout the COVID-19 crisis, First 5 San Diego has stepped in a real way, and with the support of the Board of Supervisors, has the potential to do even more. Our collective ask is that you fund First 5 San Diego at the level which is needed to truly expand their services, and that you do so as a next step in a broader county commitment to the early care and development landscape. Our children deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 0460. 0460.
Hello, Chair Fletcher and Honorable Supervisors. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today and advocate support for First 5 San Diego. My name is Courtney Baltiski with the YMCA's Child Care Resource Service, and I'm a resident of District 1. Similar to the commitment of First 5, the WISE Child Care Resource Service strengthens families and child care professionals so all reach their fullest potential. Our commitment to providing comprehensive support to families and child care providers builds a thriving community. 2020 brought that to life in unexpected and important ways. During the COVID-19 pandemic, First 5 leadership did not skip a beat. Their steadfast collaboration and urgency to understand what child care providers and families were experiencing expedited systems of communication and support unprecedented across our state.
They pivoted their work in important ways, including getting thousands of supplies, diapers, wipes, cleaning materials, and PPE to childcare providers who have been open across the county, as well as reassessing funding mechanisms to provide emergency childcare vouchers to essential working families. Our county also sees the importance of supporting children, families, and keeping childcare small businesses open in an important way during the pandemic. The board issued the first ever local funding for emergency childcare vouchers and grants to childcare providers, critical support that impacted many and kept doors open to these small businesses run largely by women of color. Our encouragement is now to build on the important work Force 5 has done for decades and push ourselves to think more about what we can do locally to support children, families, and childcare providers. We know kids don't come with manuals. Navigating their development as well as bifurcated county services many families need for resilience is a cumbersome and often stressful process. Together, we must do more to understand and improve this experience. As the new national What We Owe Our Children policy recommendations outline, we must support the whole family. Anti-racist early childhood policy is also family-friendly, recognizing that children grow up as part of families. It's time our county leadership considers a new agenda for families. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4942. 4942.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Marissa Velasquez, and I'm a family support specialist with the First 5 First Steps program in the Central San Diego region. I'll be sharing one of my client's comments on the impact this program has had on her and her family. She cannot be at this meeting today due to her work schedule. As a foreign military spouse, I am very grateful for the First 5 First Steps program. Since our families and support system are on the East Coast and across the ocean, any support in raising a child comes very handily, especially with the firstborn. From car seat installation, budget prep, fun events, creative play ideas, to checking on development milestones and sharing resources in our community, it has all been incredibly valuable and has greatly helped me in finding my own way in this new role of life. The pandemic brought a new restraint on our daily lives, and I'm happy that we at least have this program to make sure our baby boy is on track and to have connection outside our home. Marissa has been incredibly helpful and able to adapt to our needs and wants. We are grateful for having such wonderful and understanding support. I'm going to share a few words on this program from my perspective. It is such an honor to partner alongside expecting families during such an important time of human development. I have seen countless parents grow their confidence in nurturing and raising a child, building secure attachment, and providing a safe and stimulating environment in all homes despite socioeconomic status. I've seen loving and beautiful bonds grow between parents and their children despite trauma faced during their own childhood. Through stress management curriculum, therapy referrals, sharing resources, connection to other families, and supporting problem-solving skills, parents in this program grow their resiliency and rise above the hardships of life with a new set of healthy coping skills to thrive after their time in the program comes to an end. Families thank their home visitors for all the knowledge, support, resources, tears, and laughs that have been shared as they reflect on their growth as well as their child. While this is endearing, the true impact of this program is shining a light on parents and their strengths, helping them become aware of the infinite knowledge, resources, and love that already exists within them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2807. 2807. 2807, you're the last speaker on this item. So if you'd like to address the board, please press star 6. (2807), you need to press star 6, please. It looks like you muted yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. Hello, my name is Adrienne Shaw. I'm a speech therapist at Healthy Development Services, First 5 San Diego North Inland Region. And it is hard to put into words the value of our services that provide our families and our community. I have always been enthusiastic and compassionate about the work that I do at Healthy Development Services, and I didn't know that these feelings could be elevated to a higher level. But I'm here today to share with you that they have. After almost a year of working from home, transitioning to teletherapy, getting creative with therapy materials, and partnering with parents through virtual services, it is clear that what we do has never been more important.
We have continued to connect with families, provide interdisciplinary services and basic needs resources, all the while maintaining our relationships with community partners and having fun along the way. In addition to our daily developmental, speech, occupational, physical, and behavioral therapy services, our office was even able to provide a week of holiday virtual events in place of our end of the year toy drive. We have followed CDC recommendations and in a traumatic year of isolation and social distancing, found ways to do our jobs above and beyond through Zoom. Our staff has made a commitment to daily practices of mindfulness and meditation to ensure we are in the right headspace to provide the quality services our high-risk community needs. As a trauma-informed care provider and speech therapist, I know that reaching out to the families in our community who have been impacted drastically by the COVID-19 pandemic is crucial. I look forward to continuing to support our community this year, however that may look, and provide the support that they need for their children to thrive. I want to thank the entire First Five Commission, the leadership in my office, and the high-quality team members that I work with every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you to all the callers. Thank you to the First Five Commission staff team. Alethea, you all do a wonderful job. With that, I'll make a motion to receive the First Five San Diego 2020 annual report. Is there a second?
I'll second.
She has second. So Supervisor Desmond, I don't know if he wants a second or wants to comment. Supervisor Desmond?
Well, just a quick comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Aletha and her team for the great work that they're doing to promote early childhood development. My daughter is an elementary school teacher, and I've heard about her classroom challenges. And I know and understand how critical it is, to get children ready to learn when they enter school. So the foundation of learning that you're providing will last a lifetime. Thank you for the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Any other comments on this?
I'd like to make a comment. This is really important. I think we all know that, but I just would like to share that I have a 19-month-old daughter who is, we're dealing with some developmental delays, and this work is really important.
Oh, I wish I was there to hug you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Thank you. Chair Fletcher, and thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, for sharing. I think it's really important, which is, I think, why representation really matters and why we need to be at the table to make these decisions, because I think those experiences is what makes us the better advocates and legislators. But I did want to thank Alita and everybody on her team, particularly the item on the report that says that childcare has to be part of the economic recovery plan. That's something that's near and dear to my heart, and something that I'll be advocating for, and look forward to working with our board to moving forward. So just want to say thank you for all the hard work, and the fact that this work is being done with the lens of trauma-informed care is particularly critical, because I think sometimes we forget that our little people, our young people, have really been impacted by some of the nastiness that has happened at the political level, in the last 4 years, and many of our young community members are dealing with, like, their parents being taken away from them, and a lot of other different things. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all the great work, and I look forward to continue working with all of you together. And thank you again, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, for sharing.
All right, thank you. With that, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
So we're going to go ahead and break for lunch. When we come back, we have items 2, 4, 8, and 14. We will take those sequentially in agenda item. We will reconvene at 12:30. Thank you all.